please silence all cell phones and electronic devices to minimize disruptions throughout the hearing. If you have testimony you wish to submit for the record, you may do so via email at testimony@council.nyc.gov. Once again, that is testimony@council.nyc.gov. We thank you for your cooperation. Chair, we are ready to begin.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's hearing. My name is Diana Ayala, and I am the Deputy Speaker of the New York City Council and the Chair of the General Welfare Committee. Today, we are holding our annual Oversight hearing on hunger and food insecurity in New York City. We will also be hearing 7 bills. The first, Intro 28, sponsored by Majority Leader Amanda Farias, is a local law that would require the Department of Social Services to create a system to obtain employment and income information from a third party for the city's use in making determinations for benefits and services eligibility. The remaining 6 bills are resolutions. Resolution 24, sponsored by Councilmember Schulman, calls on Congress to pass and the President to sign S.2258/HR 3519, the Hot Foods Act of 2023, to permit Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program benefits to be used to purchase additional types of food items, particularly hot foods. Proposed Resolution 50A, sponsored by Councilmember Aviles, calls on the Congress to pass and the President to sign H.R. 3899, the American Family Act, which would expand the child tax credit. Resolution 57, which I have sponsored, calls on New York State to create a program to provide food benefits for those not eligible for existing benefits, including anyone over the age of 55 meeting income eligibility. Resolution 227, sponsored by Councilmember Brewer, calls on Congress to pass and the President to sign a renewed farm bill that increases funding for life-saving food aid. Resolution 237, sponsored by Councilmember Dinowitz, calls on Congress to pass and the President to sign S.1488/HR 3183, the Enhanced Access to SNAP Act of 2023, the EATS Act of 2023, to remove certain eligibility disqualifications that restrict otherwise eligible students from participating in the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. And finally, Resolution 419, sponsored by Councilmember Sanchez, calls on the New York State Legislature to pass and the Governor to sign S.7823/8.4096, requiring the implementation of an electronic benefit transfer system using industry standard commercial electronic funds transfer technology. Moving on to our oversight topic for today. Every year, the Committee on General Welfare holds a hearing on hunger and food insecurity, recognizing the growing challenges around these issues for too many New Yorkers. We know that for too many New Yorkers, we know that poverty and food insecurity overlap, and we know that people of color, as well as those living with disabilities and chronic health conditions, are more likely to experience food insecurity. There are various food programs administered by DSS and HRA to help fill the inequities and gaps resulting in hunger in our city. For example, DSS funds and manages the network of the New York City's food pantries and soup kitchens through Community Food Connection. We want to be sure that these programs are set up for success, and that providers have what they need to curb hunger. This means properly funding providers and doing so on time. As the pandemic era food assistance programs have come to an end, we're seeing a greater number of New Yorkers facing hunger. Factors such as backlogs and rejections of SNAP applications, the influx of asylum seekers, and the theft of electronic benefits used to disperse SNAP payments have exacerbated food insecurity in New York City. I look forward to hearing from the administration and advocates today and gathering feedback on the oversight topic of all of the relevant current issues, as well as Intro 28. At this time, I'd like to acknowledge my colleagues who are here, Council Members Aviles, Ong, Cabang, and Brewer. I would also like to thank the committee staff who worked hard to prepare this hearing. Aminta Killawan, Senior Legislative Counsel, Nina Rosenberg, Policy Analyst, Julia Haram as Unit Head, Parina Rahman, Finance Analyst, Ann Driscoll, Data Analyst, and finally, Elsie Encarnacion, Chief of Staff. Give me 1 second. Okay. I will now turn it over to Councilmember Aviles, followed by Councilmember Brewer, to speak on their resolutions.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair. Thank you all for being here today to discuss this very pressing issue of hunger and food insecurity in our city. This is an issue that impacts certainly my district, District 38, and we know from citywide data collected by Feed NYC that food pantry visits are up by 60% since the pandemic. Of course, this shouldn't be a surprise considering since that time we faced record high inflation, record high housing costs, rising healthcare costs, and stagnant wages. And of course, the reason I'm here today, all of this combined with an expiration of the child tax credit, which caused poverty levels to double nationwide, up from 5.2% to 12.4% after the tax credit expired. While the extension of the child tax credit failed to materialize ahead of the April 15th deadline, there is still hope that the Senate will push this important measure through, and our families of our city who are struggling will be able to see this benefit retroactively. I urge my colleagues to move this resolution forward so that we might send a clear message to our colleagues in the federal government that our families desperately need this benefit to cover basic expenditures. We know that by implementing proven strategies like the child tax credit, they uplift working families and we're able to materialize gains that impact our communities for generations to come. According to the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, by boosting the future earnings and tax payments of child beneficiaries, improving health and longevity of parents and children, reducing health care, child protection, and criminal justice costs, the child tax credit expansion would likely provide large and lasting gains for the next generation. So here in New York City, nearly 18.5% of our children are living in poverty, the majority of which are Black and brown and living in communities like the one I represent. In helping our families care for their children, we uplift our entire community and not only make our streets safer, but create flexibility to access opportunities that otherwise would not have been within reach. Thank you, Chair Ayala, for holding this important hearing today and all this resolution being heard, all the resolutions and intros being heard today on this very important issue. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I am here to support Resolution 227, which calls on a renewed farm bill that increases funding for life-saving food aid. It used to be that in the old days, this wasn't an issue because it was bipartisan, farmers and urban dwellers and people who needed food. Well, obviously, in our crazy environment, that is not what's happening. The recent House Majority Farm Bill proposal is doing the exact opposite by reducing $30 billion in food resources to 44 million Americans who live in insecure households. Too many New Yorkers are experiencing food insecurity. According to the recent Mayor's Office of Food Policy 2022 Food Metrics Annual Report, an estimated 1.2 million, or 14.6% of New York residents were food insecure. All you have to do is go to a food pantry and you will see it. More cuts to food security will only continue the increase in need for emergency food assistance. Across the city, food banks and soup kitchens have seen double-digit increases in demand. We need more government investments in food security at all levels. The farm bill proposed by the Senate majority, which protects the nutrition safety net, would be far better for hungry Americans. We urge the committees in Washington to work together to pass a farm bill that expands benefits. Providing life-saving food aid is a moral imperative. Thank you, Joel Berg, always, and Hunger Free America for your leadership and advocacy in the fight against food insecurity. Thank you, and I have to go next door for the committee.
Thank you. I would now like to turn it over to our policy analyst to swear in members of the administration.
First Deputy Commissioner Barry, could you please raise your right hand? First Deputy Commissioner Barry, could you please raise your right hand? Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth before this committee, and to respond honestly to council member questions?
Yes.
You may begin.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Jill Berry, and I serve as the First Deputy Commissioner at the Department of Social Services. I'd like to thank Deputy Speaker Ayala and the members of the Committee on General Welfare for holding today's hearing on hunger and food insecurity in New York City. There are many faces of food insecurity: a child going to school hungry in the morning, a parent lying awake at night wondering how they'll put the next meal on the table, a pregnant person seeking nutritious options as a part of their diet to foster healthy prenatal development. Because food insecurity intersects with so many aspects of our well-being, it is essential that our city continue to build on efforts to be a strong partner in aiding food insecure households. DSS serves as an integral part of a safety net that includes the New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene and the Mayor's Office of Food Policy, as well as a panoply of community stakeholders, including neighborhood older adult centers, our houses of worship, and community-based organizations. Collectively, this array of institutions participate in tackling the challenge of food insecurity. Our shared commitment stems from our understanding that everyone deserves the peace of mind that comes with food security. If anyone listening is facing food insecurity, know that there is help available. You can call 311 or visit foodhelpnyc.gov to find nearby food pantries and community kitchens. Access HRA, our mobile app, and our benefits access centers serve as further resources where clients can apply for benefits. I also want to take this opportunity to encourage those clients receiving SNAP to learn more about the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene's food access initiatives, including Health Bucks, Half Off Farm Box, Get the Good Stuff, and Groceries to Go. All assist in strengthening a network of healthy food options for New Yorkers. The Department of Social Services is responsible for administering programs crucial to uplifting food security. The Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, helps approximately 1.8 million New Yorkers access nutritious food. The Community Food Connection Program, CFC, funds 699 food pantries and community kitchens across the 5 boroughs. CFC served more than 25.9 million people duplicated in FY24. The CFC model has created added flexibility for providers to distribute the mix of foods that best meet the needs of the communities they serve, including fresh produce, halal-certified proteins, and kosher-certified foods, among many other options. As highlighted by Mayor Adams earlier this year, DSS is happy to report that we have functionally eliminated the previously reported backlogs of cash assistance and SNAP applications that peaked at more than 50,000 combined cases, ensuring low-income New Yorkers can quickly and easily access the federal benefits for which they qualify. Investments in staffing, technology, and process improvements has reduced the backlog of cases by 99% and 92% respectively. In total, DSS processed more than 600,000 cash assistance and SNAP applications during this period. Faced with a record number of applications as federal pandemic-related support expired, DSS deployed a robust plan to process outstanding applications quickly and make it easier for low-income New Yorkers to access critical benefits. DSS hired nearly 1,000 new staff since January 2023 to process both cash assistance and SNAP applications, doubled down on training for staff, and strengthened remote application processes to make it easier to apply for benefits. This achievement could not have been completed without the hard work of our dedicated staff who service millions of New Yorkers every day. Outreach is an essential component of our work. We have a responsibility to not only make assistance available, but also to make sure New Yorkers are aware that the city is a partner in food security. To that end, DSS Office of Community Outreach conducts targeted outreach campaigns to organizations serving specific including older adults, the LGBTQI community, persons with disabilities, and immigrant communities. The Office of Community Outreach conducts presentations and attends resource fairs, farmers markets, and other events to increase SNAP awareness and engagement. In addition, DSS works through various channels to educate the public about SNAP benefits, to maximize the city's use of available federal programs, to increase the purchasing power of low-income New Yorkers. The Office of Community Outreach also provides SNAP trainings and presentations, pre-screens potentially eligible applicants, and assists with the SNAP application process. As I mentioned at the start of my testimony, New Yorkers in need of assistance should call 311, visit foodhelpnyc.gov to find nearby food pantries and community kitchens, or reach us through Access HRA or our Benefits Access Centers. New Yorkers can also be connected to a community-based organization to get help with SNAP enrollment as well as other benefits by calling 311 or visiting the HRA website, Find a Partner Organization page. In addition, DSS participates in monthly SNAP task force meetings chaired by the Food Bank for New York City to provide updates and answer questions from participating CBOs. In 2023, DSS conducted a total of 81 trainings, which included 1,730 attendees, in using these tools to submit SNAP and other benefit applications and provide benefit case management via Access HRA. Training attendees included staff from other municipal agencies and community partner organizations, including older adult center staff. These trainings were also a forum for questions and concerns from providers and advocates working directly with HRA and DHS clients, including older adults. We must also recognize the challenge of pursuing innovative solutions and approaches in an environment that is severely constrained by stringent federal and state regulations. As the administrator of multi-billion-dollar social services programs, DSS is obligated to adhere to the rubrics set out by state and federal authorities. One of the most recent and successful collaborations across levels of government has been the response to the theft of SNAP benefits, commonly referred to as skimming. Skimming occurs when unscrupulous actors tamper with retail credit card swipe machines and are able to siphon off vital SNAP funds from our local clients. In response to the high number of instances of stolen funds, DSS worked with our partners on the state and federal level to create a reimbursement program to assist the clients who rely on these funds. As of May 22, 2024, DSS has approved reimbursement of over 82,000 SNAP claims, amounting to more than $26 million in restored benefits. Approved replacement benefits have consistently been added to client EBT cards within 3 days of determination. We look forward to continued collaboration with our state and federal partners to ensure EBT cards are suited with the highest level of security to protect clients who rely on these benefits. Currently, there are proposals to add chip technology to the EBT cards, similar to your average credit card, which will prevent this type of skimming theft. We are supportive of these proposals and are in ongoing conversations with our partners in government to advance this effort. As the largest social service agency in the nation, it would be criminal of me not to highlight the importance of the federal Farm Bill currently being reviewed and evaluated in Congress. Among several provisions included in this dense piece of legislation, this bill enables the SNAP funds that 1.8 million New Yorkers rely on. Any discussion or entertainment of a cut to the SNAP program would be catastrophic and put millions at risk of food insecurity, including the 560,000 children and 530,000 New Yorkers above the age of 60. 1 in 3 New York City renters experience food insecurity. More than half of New Yorkers experiencing food hardship also reported facing health problems. It is essential that this already limited subsidy get maintained at current funding levels, or better yet, improved. The Adams administration are actively collaborating with our partners in government, as well as the advocacy community, to ensure this vital resource is available to New Yorkers in need of food. We encourage the City Council and any other stakeholders to join us in advocating for this essential tool in fighting food insecurity. Shifting to the legislation noticed for this hearing, DSS is reviewing Introduction 28 and is committed to working with our state and federal partners to improve employment and income verification. We agree on the need to utilize tools to facilitate the process of eligibility determination and client information verification. This is why presently DSS engages with external databases and state government partners. We welcome an opportunity to discuss this legislation with its sponsors further, especially as to what further third-party verification systems or interfaces this bill envisions, and the benefits that would accrue to applicants, clients, and the city in using these further third-party verification systems. We stand ready to pursue any additional technologies or tools that facilitate connecting New Yorkers with the benefits and services they rely upon. Our work as the largest social services agency in the country would not be possible without the generosity, partnership, and commitment of countless fellow New Yorkers. Thank you to the hardworking staff at DSS, HRA, and DHS, and all across government and our community partners who dedicate their lives to servicing the most vulnerable. Special thanks to the Council and this committee for your support and sustained advocacy on this critical issue. I appreciate the opportunity to testify and welcome your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to recognize that we've also been joined by Council Members Farias, Banks, and Riley. Councilmember Farias.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me time to read my statement. So thank you again, and thank you, First Deputy Commissioner Berry, for your testimony. Good morning, everyone. I'm really proud to be attending today's hearing to discuss hunger and food insecurity in New York City and hear my bill, Introduction 28, in relation to establishing a system to obtain employment and income information from a third party for the city's use in making determinations for benefits and services eligibility. This legislation would encourage the city to better streamline city processes and ensure we get New Yorkers the services they need as fast as possible. Instead of making an appointment after appointment and waiting weeks on end to hear back if you qualify, which many of my constituents go through, this legislation would allow for people to instead have a one-stop shop where they can find out every benefit that they qualify for. And while we use similar systems throughout our service-oriented agencies currently, our people really do need a one-stop shop focused on efficiency. We know that programs like SNAP are often emergency relief for people and their families, and thus we cannot leave our neighbors in need to wait for weeks to know if they're eligible for only one benefit. Local government's main function, in my belief, is to get dire services to their constituents and to maximize our tools for outreach. We can do that with Introduction 28. In New York State, 1 in 4 adults are experiencing food insecurity, and in my home borough of the Bronx, it's at a staggering 39%. This legislation is long overdue and grows more urgent with the rise of inflation and the ongoing affordability crisis in New York City. So I look forward to continuing our conversations. Thank you, Deputy Speaker Ayala, for your leadership on today's issue and for including my bill in today's hearing.
Thank you, and I just want to clarify that, today's hearing is an important one because we touch on so many different aspects of food and how that impacts, the daily lives of our most vulnerable New Yorkers. And I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge that I'm very disappointed that HPD was not here. They were invited to come and testify specifically because they were the recipients of a no-bid contract in the amount of $53 million to provide asylum-seeking families with debit cards that they would be able to use for food. And it would have been nice, considering that it's been several months now, to get a sense of how well or not that program was operating. It is, our oversight responsibility to ensure that we have a better understanding of how our taxpayer dollars are being spent, and it's really just disappointing that no one is here from HPD to respond to those questions. I will move on. HRA's New York City Benefits Program contracts with community-based nonprofit organizations across the city to provide assistance with public benefits, eligibility screening, and applications. Funding for this program was first added in fiscal year 23 as a joint priority between the administration and the council, and it is a vital resource aiming to increase public benefits enrollments among low-income New York City residents. Currently, can you tell us how many CBOs are part of the New York City Benefits Program, and can you provide a breakdown by borough?
Yep, there are 36 direct services CBOs as part of the program, and another 3 that are technical assistance providers. I do have the full list of each of the 39 by borough, which I could read to you or we could provide to you after the hearing.
I think I would actually like to have it on the record, so if you can read through them.
Absolutely. So the citywide providers are Arab American Family Support Center, Center for Independence of the Disabled New York, Center for Urban Community Services, Fortune Society, Hunger Free America, Jewish Association for Services for the Aged, Red de Pueblos Transnacionales. In Brooklyn, we have Bedford Stuyvesant Restoration Corporation, Center for Family Life in Sunset Park, Chinese American Planning Council, Cypress Hills Local Development Corporation, Haitian Americans United for Progress, Make the Road New York, Mixteca, Riseboro Community Partnership, Shorefront YWHI of Brighton, Manhattan Beach, United Jewish Organizations of Williamsburg, Yemeni American Merchants Association. In the Bronx, we have Bronx Works, Bronx Defenders, Mercy Center, Montefiore Medical Center, Moshulu Montefiore Community Center, Northern Manhattan Improvement Corporation, Part of the Solution, Women's Housing and Economic Development Corporation, and Yemeni American Merchants Association. In Manhattan, we have Asian Americans for Equality, Chinese American Planning Council, Goddard Riverside Community Center, Henry Street Settlement, Northern Manhattan Improvement Corporation, and Union Settlement. In Queens, we have Asian Americans for Equality, Common Point Queens, Haitian Americans United for Progress, Korean Community Services, Make the Road New York, South Asian Council for Social Services, Sunnyside Community Services. Staten Island, Project Hospitality, La Comina, and Make the Road New York. And our 3 technical assistance providers that operate citywide are Bronx Legal Services, Community Services Society, and Public Health Solutions.
Thank you. We've also been joined by Councilmember Stevens. Can you confirm that there will be no programmatic impact to any of those CBOs in this program from the PEG that was included in the preliminary plan?
Yeah, all of these providers will receive the same level of funding in FY25 as they have received under the prior contract. What we did was we took these contracts in-house from CUNY. CUNY charges an 8% admin fee on top of the amount that we're paying for the contracts. This program is also very important to our agency, and we really felt strongly that both there would be the dollar savings running it ourselves, and we can also be closer to and have better oversight over the program that is so important to connecting New Yorkers to our services.
Yeah. Can you tell us what the budget for the New York City Benefits program is in fiscal year 24 and fiscal year 25 and in the outer years if possible?
So the funding for the program, the budget for FY24 was $9.2 million. It's $11.7 million in FY25. That's more than enough to cover the $9.5 million for the CBOs. There is a cliff in the out years for this program, but we're confident that as we can continue to demonstrate the success and importance of this program, that we will work with the administration to keep this program funded. The new contracts will be 1-year contracts, renewable for 3 succeeding years that we're establishing in July.
Okay. Now, we've heard from some of the CBO providers that despite being granted a 3-year award, their initial contracts were just for 1. Why was that the case?
The contracts were 1-year contracts that were renewable for subsequent years for up to 3 years.
For up to 3 years. Okay. And we have additionally heard from providers that the first-year contracts ended in December, that when they ended in December, they were not automatically given another contract. After some delay, while many of them continued to provide services without a contract in place, they were granted a 6-month contract. Why was there a delay, and why was the contract then term shorted if you're acknowledging that it should have been renewed?
So the 6-month contract term was the bridge essentially from CUNY to DSS. So there was a 1-year calendar year 23 contract with each of the providers. Now we're CUNY is bridging the gap for the 6 months from January 24 to June 24, and then we will pick up 1-year contracts at DSS starting in July 2024. There were absolutely some delays with that 6-month bridge, but we are working with CUNY to smooth out any issues.
Okay. Can you tell us what the share is that goes to CUNY?
They charge an 8% admin fee on top of the contract values.
On top of the contract. Okay. I had a question regarding the EBT, the reimbursement of the skimming cases, the 82. So you mentioned in your testimony that as of May 22nd, 82,000 SNAP claims amounting to 26 million were restored. Do you know how many applications were denied?
It is a very small number. Let me see if I have that here with me. If I don't have that readily available, we can definitely get that to you. 70% are approved.
70%?
70% of the applications are approved, so 30% are not approved.
Do you have any idea of what would be a reason for a denial?
Yeah, so there's a variety of reasons. We do send a denial notice to every client who is denied with the reason for denial, so they have an opportunity to resubmit their application. Reasons for denial could be that dates that they indicate their benefits were skimmed were not dates that there were any transactions on their cards. It would mostly be issues like that. Somebody didn't indicate their case number, we're not able to identify them as a SNAP recipient. Mostly issues like that, which if the individual was skimmed, they receive that information in their denial notice, and they would then have the information to be able to resubmit their claim. And there's no limit on the number of claims people can submit.
Yeah, I'm concerned about that because I know that we were receiving a number of calls directly from folks that had their benefits skimmed and were desperate. Desperate because, this is the only money that they have for food for the month, and now it's gone, and there's no way to reimburse it. And then finally, after they wait months, for reimbursement, and they're finally there's an opportunity, right? The state does the right thing here. People were being denied. I had a case in my district where there was one of my seniors had an issue. She called me frantic. She's like, Diana, they stole my money. And I had to explain to her that unfortunately she wasn't going to get it back. That we were working and hoping that the state would add some funding. And so as soon as the state added the funding, I was really excited to call her and say, hey, the money's there. Let me help you personally fill out this application, send it in that same day. And she got denied. She was denied because of the date issue. Now, the problem was that she was correct, because in the system that she had an app on her phone. When I looked at it, the date that she gave me was the date that we reported. But for some reason, on HRAs, and you had a different date. So I wonder if that happened to, thankfully because of that, because she had the app, she was able to go back, and she was, she's one of those very savvy older adults and knows how to handle technology. And so she was like, no, that was the date. That's the date that's on the app. And so we were able to go back, and she was then, provided her funds back. But it took a little, little troubleshooting. So is that happening, beyond, offices like mine?
It is. Unfortunately, the date issue is the most common reason for denial, and it happens a lot. There are third-party apps out there that don't have the exact transaction date that is required for submission of the application. We make sure that as we're talking to elected officials, we're talking to CBOs, and all of the literature that we're putting out to our clients, we are letting them know that they need to use the app, the main app, the primary app. It was Connect EBT up until a few weeks ago. Now it is Edge EBT, but you have to use the state's app, not a third-party app, in order to get the correct information.
So who contracts with the third-party app?
Third-party apps are using, yes, they have no connection to the city or the state.
That's scary, because if they don't have a connection to the city or the state, how do they have access to all of that information that's supposed to be very confidential?
Yes, we strongly encourage people to use the app that is approved by the state and the city.
Yeah, but how, is there any, is HRA aware of how, I mean, I don't understand, I'm not as tech savvy as my seniors, obviously, but, how does a third party, are they purchasing that information?
Honestly, I'm not sure. They're certainly not purchasing it from the City of New York. The City of New York is not providing that information to any vendors.
We will stick Gail Brewer on this, because this is like more of an oversight. This is more of an oversight and investigations, getting down to the nitty-gritty part of this investigation, but I find that very troubling. Is there any information that is shared with the recipients, letting them know what a third-party app is, an example of any that may be out there and in the atmosphere, and that they should be very careful not to? Because I mean, the one that she was on, I was pretty sure was an HRA app. So if it wasn't an HRA app, it looked very official, because even I thought that it was.
Yeah, and I don't know for certain that these third-party apps are doing anything nefarious. They are not getting their information from us.
Yeah.
And we do, all of our messaging to clients tells people which app it is that they should be using.
Yeah, okay. We'll follow up on that, just because and again, I don't know that they are or they aren't, but the fact that they have access to client information scares the bejesus out of me. How they're obtaining that information, is important to me. What they're doing with that information is important to me. But whether or not individuals understand what the difference is between the apps is also critically important, because they're using it and as a guiding principle, right? They're using it, and it's to them this is a legitimate app, and I was very impressed with it, by the way. So I'll go back and I'll look at hers just to double check. Regarding the hiring and staffing processes, even with the system improvements, well-trained, adequate staffing levels at HRA is a crucial component of processing public benefits in a timely manner. According to OMB documents, the SNAP program area has 1,231 budgeted positions, which is 26 positions less than the actual head count back in April of 23, which was 1,257. Does HRA plan to adjust the budgeted head count for the SNAP program area in a future plan? And if so, when and by how many positions?
So right now, OMB is allowing us to replace all of our attrition in the SNAP program 1-for-1. So every time somebody leaves or is promoted, we are able to replace that individual. And we're going to continue with that process to maintain our current staffing levels. At this point, we don't have any plans to make any changes to our budget. We're going to keep working with OMB to maintain our current staffing levels.
Okay. And how many positions in HRA are currently is HRA currently trying to fill for SNAP administration?
Every person who leaves, we are trying to replace, I want to say it's in the 30 range for this month.
Okay. Where are they budgeted?
The budget for SNAP is in budget code 1315.
Okay. What special hiring accommodations, if any, are being made to staff up to these areas beyond just the citywide mandated hiring policy for one-on-one? Does HRA have authorization to fill all of the budgeted positions that are vacant regardless of attrition?
In the case of SNAP, we're working with OMB to fill all of the positions one for one regardless of the budget. So right now that is a little bit over the budget, quite frankly, and so the one for one will maintain our current staffing levels, which is what we believe we need in SNAP right now.
Okay, is HRA still deploying staff from other areas to assist in the processing of SNAP?
There are no staff redeployed in SNAP right now. We still have about 200 staff redeployed to the cash assistance program. They'll be returning to their home programs by the end of June.
Okay, can you tell us where we are in terms of the backlog? I know that we heard that the backlog had been cleared. Are we at 0 now? Or, I mean, that was the previous backlog. So I'm curious to hear about what the number is to date.
Yep, so as of the end of April, we had approximately 165 SNAP applications that were overdue and 534 cash assistance applications that were overdue.
500 and, I'm sorry?
Sorry?
Could you repeat that number, the last number?
534 cash and 165 SNAP.
How does that compare with where you were last year?
Last year, we were
In the
much higher than that. These numbers are, you know, while every application should absolutely be processed on time, these are more reflective of our regular process where occasionally a client might submit a piece of document close to the end of the time period, and we'll keep the case open while we assess the eligibility. We're not looking to just close out an application if we have more work to be done.
Okay. So what would you say that the current timeline rate is for processing for SNAP specifically?
So our timeliness numbers are still the February numbers, which are reflective of before we cleared the backlog, the 61.8% for cash assistance and 71.2% for SNAP. The numbers that we manage to on a day-to-day are the actual backlog numbers, the numbers of cases that are actually due. Calculating timeliness for over 70,000 applications received every month takes us a little bit of time to put those numbers together.
Analysis from the New York City Council's data team found that there was a decrease in SNAP usage in 2023 as compared to 2022 in Brooklyn, especially in Bushwick, which had a 6% decrease. Crown Heights had a 5% decrease in Red Hook, and Carroll Gardens, well, in Red Hook, Carroll Gardens, Gowanus had a 7% decrease. Do you have any idea of what could account for this decrease in usage in these areas?
So this was a decrease in what? I missed the beginning.
It was a decrease in use of, a decrease in SNAP applications, SNAP usage.
Not sure why there would be a decrease in SNAP applications from any particular borough. There were certainly decreases as the pandemic benefits decreased over time. There were the dollars that are going out into every community are a lot less today than they were during the pandemic when everybody was receiving the maximum benefit. And I'm sure that there are some people who were applying for and staying on SNAP for that maximum benefit, where it might not be quite as worth their while for a much smaller benefit today.
Okay,
But there would be no particular reason. We really do try to make sure everybody who's eligible for SNAP applies.
Testimony by HRA staff at the preliminary budget and the executive budget hearings directly contradicted some of the claims that were made by HRA leadership at the hearing regarding the benefits backlog, such as the backlog being cleared and that the mandatory overtime no longer being utilized. Employees testified that the mandatory overtime is still happening at some sites and that HRA still had a backlog of 30,000 applications as of May 6th. In addition, staff claimed that the technology changes HRA had made, such as those relating to the Angie system, were severely hindered their ability to work efficiently because the system does not allow the workers to double check applications. It is prone to glitches, and the IT tickets were not quickly resolved. Staff members testified that they are able to process fewer applications per day than before Angie was implemented. Can you clarify why there was such a notable discrepancy in your testimony and the account of HRA staff at the hearing, and what is HRA doing to address the issues with the Angie system? And I know that, you know, there was a lot, there's always, you know, the testimonies are always very, very different when it relates to the Angie system. So my understanding of it is that Angie was created right before the pandemic, or it was implemented right before the pandemic. And so when the pandemic hit and everybody went remote, there was a decision in HRA to revert back to the old system, which allowed, I think it was over 70% processing rate, you know, was pretty decent, right, in comparison. And then once people went back to the office, Angie was then reinstituted. Now, the complaint that we consistently get from the staff, and it's very consistent, and I believe them, is that there are glitches with the system that don't allow them to go from point A to point B sometimes, and so they have to stop an application. And I get HRA's point. You want to be very thorough, so you want them to be able to slow down enough to ensure that they're asking all of the questions. But at this point, you know, it appears as though there is something. It may not be, you know, it may not be the worst thing, but there is a problem that is occurring within the system that is preventing the workers from being able to process some applications. They've brought it up several times. Has there been an acknowledgement of those complaints, and has anyone addressed them? Because I feel more like, you know, when we were going through the questions, like whenever we ask these questions, and we've asked it several times, is the explanation that we get is more of a kind of like, no, you know, we've gone through it, but you know, it's not, yes, listen, we heard that from them, so we're gonna go back, we're gonna go check. Like there's never been that level of accounting for like what is the root cause of those complaints.
Yep, I absolutely, I hear you. So a few things that I want to say that we've done. So the backlog number that was being reported in Angie was not the number of cases that were overdue. It was the number of cases that had been ready for processing for more than 5 days. And it wasn't just an application or a restart, it was any case change. So we've, since then, since we were last here, we've changed the name of that indicator in Angie. So it no longer calls it a backlog, but rather, you know, case changes ready for action, or something along those lines. So it is more reflective of what that data point actually is. The staff members that testified after the last budget hearing, we reached out to each of them personally and invited them to join the regular meetings that we are already having with other line staff. It's not that we were not meeting with regularly with line staff to hear about the system and what's working and what's not working. But we personally invited those particular staff members to join that working group. And I know at least one of them is actively participating at this point in time. System's not perfect. Every system has some glitches. Some things are glitches and technology issues. Some things are training issues, and we need to do a better job of training staff. Now that we have cleared the backlogs, and in recognition that this system needs a little bit of attention, our IT teams took all of the outstanding help desk tickets, which I know staff get annoyed at having to put into the system, but they do help us to figure out where problems are. We were able to group the top 5 help desk tickets, and we're specifically focused on resolving each one of those issues. We believe if we could address those top 5 help desk issues, it would probably resolve about 80% of the issues with the system. So those are some concrete steps that we are taking now, and we are able to take now because we've been able to clear the backlogs, and we can put some more energy and attention into tweaking the system and making sure that it's working well as we intended and is working well for the staff who actually have to use the system and do the work every day.
So I'm assuming that the next time that the staff comes to testify, they'll say that it's gotten better. I'm hoping.
The same staff, they should be talking about working in these work groups, and the same things that I'm saying is what they are hearing and talking about.
Okay.
If it's new staff, we'll invite them to the work group.
Okay. I'm gonna allow councilmember questions now. Councilmember Farias, followed by Councilmember Riley.
Thank you so much, Chair. And thank you for answering all of the Chair's questions. Just wanted to kind of go over Introduction 28. The admin at least seems somewhat supportive of it. Can you kind of describe some of these systems we already use? I know you gave a brief description to the Deputy Speaker earlier. Some of the systems we're already using, what's the catch basin that we're getting information from? Is there any specific things we look for to find eligibility? And any streamlining that we do?
Yeah, absolutely. The legislation specifically talked about income and employment information, so the data matches that we have and use right now for income and employment information include information from the State Department of Labor, new hires and wage information. We also are able to leverage the state's contract with the Talks Corporation that has a lot of income and employment information from private vendors. And we use all of that information whenever possible to not require additional documentation from clients. But in addition, income and employment is not the only data that we get. We also have access to data through LexisNexis, Department of Health, Vital Records. We're always looking for ways to get information that we need for applications from data matches. It's verified. It's something that staff don't have to look at. It's easier for the clients. It's really, it's more streamlined and easier for everybody. That being said, not everybody's income is in one of these systems. The other thing is that if somebody had a job, was employed, was working, and we see that in the system, but they just lost it. Now they are eligible for benefits, but the data that we're looking at indicates that they were very recently working, of course, and doesn't have the date that they lost their employment. So there are, even though we have access to a lot of data, we do a lot of data matches, there are absolutely times when we do need to ask clients for more information. And I mean it, if there are other third-party sources for data out there that we're not using and we should take a look at, we are happy to take a look at those options.
Okay, great. And are there any concerns or challenges you might see, at least right now, for where the bill stands on it?
I think that the bigger issue is what is there that we're not looking at. We would love to take a look at it.
Okay, great. I don't have any other additional questions. Thank you, Chair.
Councilmember Riley?
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Deputy Commissioner. I think, as you stated before, the CFC provides, according to the 699 food pantries and community kitchens across New York City. DSS funds and manages the CFC and the network of NYC food pantries and kitchens. Due to the fact that food and living costs are increasing, can you just share what the plans are to address the theft of electronic benefits used to disperse SNAP payments?
What was the last part? Could you repeat the question?
What are the plans to address the theft of electronic benefits used to disperse SNAP benefits?
Right, for skimming. So we do have an application out there online. We have approved over 82,000 applications, over $25 million in replacement benefits for SNAP. One thing I do want to highlight for everybody is that the authorization to replace skimmed SNAP benefits expires currently at the end of September. After September, we will not have the authorization to replace SNAP benefits. We would welcome and encourage everyone's advocacy at the federal level to have that extended past September. As long as there are not chips in the EBT cards, the EBT cards are going to be very susceptible to skimming.
Thank you. In recent years, New Yorkers have been dealing with increased food bills due to the rising cost of groceries. A great number of New Yorkers are experiencing food insecurity, as we all know. What are plans or steps are being done to address the rise in backlogs and rejections of SNAP applications? And what recruitment efforts, advancement opportunities for employees, and external partnerships have been explored to fill the needed positions in your office?
So we've been able to fill all of our vacant positions and address our backlogs. I believe, as Deputy Speaker Ayala pointed out, we're a little bit over our budgeted headcount on SNAP right now, and we're maintaining those staffing levels, and we plan to continue to do so. We have resolved our backlogs, and at this point, we continue to not have backlogs, and we will keep a close eye on those. In terms of access to the SNAP program, we're really proud. The federal government establishes a program access index, which essentially gives you the percentage of people who are in receipt of SNAP versus the number that are likely eligible for SNAP. And the PAI for New York City is 91.9%. That is our highest yet. We continue to increase that each year. PAI for the United States is 77.9%, and for New York State, it's 82.7%. So we are doing better than the country and the state. That doesn't mean we don't have more to do, right? There's still another 8% left. So making sure our benefits are available both in centers and online, contracting with CBOs through the New York City Benefits Program to outreach to communities that might be a little bit more wary of government. All of those are things we're doing to try to continue to close that gap and ensure that everybody who's eligible for SNAP is in receipt of SNAP.
Thank you, Deputy Commissioner. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councilmember Vilas?
Hi there. Thank you so much. Thank you, Chair. I'd like to inquire a little. I understand HPD is not here today to talk about, the contracts that they're managing related to food, which is deeply disappointing. However, you are here. So I'd love to hear some more about food in the DHS facilities in terms of contract management for asylum seekers in the asylum seeker shelters. Could you tell us a little bit about how many contracts are being held for food, and if you've seen a similar experience to what we saw happening with the DocGo food contract, was enormous amounts of waste and these meals being thrown out for a variety of reasons. So if you could tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So generally in the DHS system, the contracted shelter providers are responsible for procuring and providing food, usually through a subcontract with a food vendor. In recognition of the large number of contracts, we had to stand up very quickly, and the inability of community-based organizations providers to stand up the staff immediately. We also have 3 emergency contracts that are held directly by DHS, and those bridge the gap until a provider is able to fully take over the shelter and contract for their own food. They can provide the food themselves, they can cook food on site, they can subcontract with others. In terms of the food itself, we follow the city's food standards for food. We do make sure that we do allow shelters and encourage shelters to order more food if people are hungry, to make sure that if somebody needs, especially in recognition of the new arrivals to the city, people are hungry, right? And if people want more than one meal, they can get more than one meal. We do things like tasting the foods, weighing the foods to make sure people that the food vendors are providing food that tastes good, that meets nutrition standards when we review the menus, and that is the right weight and size for what we are contracting for. And when we find issues, we resolve them. There is certainly some food waste always. It can be very hard to predict what meal is going to be appealing to the residents of a shelter on a given day. We do encourage our shelter providers, if there's a particular meal that's not popular at your shelter, maybe you work with your vendor to not order that meal again and look for something different.
Thank you, Chair. I just want a follow-up question. So for the 3 emergency contracts you hold for those that are, I guess, those shelters that are in transition, who are those contracts with, and how much are those contracts?
The contracts are with Whitson, Riviera, and Dahl, and I would have to get back to you on the exact dollar value for each of those 3 contracts.
And I guess in terms of, you mentioned like doing some quality control and checking in, what's the cadence of that, given kind of the huge expansion of facilities? How often are you checking in? And is there, do you receive any direct feedback from any of the residents in those facilities around the quality of the food?
Thank you. Those are great questions. We do regular surveys with all of our clients. That was something we did before the influx of asylum seekers and something we continue to do. In terms of
what does regular mean? What does that mean?
I'm going to have to get back to you on I'm not sure I have the regular. I believe it's annually, but I do want to get back to you specifically on what that is. In terms of the staffing and the cadence of checking the food, we are staffed for pre-migrant when most of our shelters, in fact, did not provide food. We had gotten to the point where families with children were not in hotels. They mostly had their own cooking facilities, in which case we were not providing food. So we are not tasting the food, weighing the food for every provider on any regular basis. We are right now targeting it to places where we are hearing a lot of complaints or maybe larger providers, and it is something we need to explore as to whether we need to expand our capabilities there.
And lastly, in terms of, I guess, complaint feedback, what's the mechanism for that? Is it participants have to complain to the provider? Is there a number they can go directly to DHS? Like what's the mechanism through which you receive the feedback around the quality of the food in the facilities?
Yeah, so they have a variety of methods. Certainly the first line of defense is the provider who is on site, who should be hearing that information. But we also run the DHS Ombudsman's office, where clients can walk in, call, email, reach out to us with any complaints about their shelter, food and other, and we do follow up on every one of those complaints.
Great. If you would, for the record, can you note the telephone number and email for the DHS Ombudsman office?
I think I might have to get back to you on that. I'm sorry.
Do you happen to have a sample menu or an idea of what a day-to-day meal would look like at some of these facilities? Because I'm a little concerned that we had a hearing a few months ago, and there were some gentlemen that were asylum seekers that were here in the vicinity of City Hall for something else, and somebody told them about the hearing, and so they came in and testified. And one of them actually had brought his breakfast with him. And I'm not saying that was the DHS site or whatever, but I'm trying to kind of get a general idea of, if we're saying that we're serving folks breakfast, is it a full breakfast, right? His breakfast consisted of a yogurt with a pack of raisins, and that to me, right? So if I ask him, did they provide you breakfast? Technically, yes, he was provided with breakfast, but then when I asked for more clarification in terms of the details of what that breakfast entailed, then it was really obvious that it was an inadequate, right, meal for an individual that's placed in a city shelter.
Yeah, so if I could just go back, the Ombudsman's office, the phone number for the DHS Ombudsman's office is 800-994-6494. And the email is ombudsman, OMBUDSMAN, @dss.nyc. And people can also, and I should have said this initially, but anybody could also call 311 and they'll be directed appropriately. I don't have any sample menus with me, but we do post the menus in the shelters. I've seen them posted for the week in the shelters. And providers are required to send us sample menus to review the nutrition standards on a regular basis. So as an agency, that is something that we do have and collect and review.
So how would you compare the waste, you know, the quantity of food that went without being eaten last year compared to, you know, May of 2024? Has it gotten better? Are we ordering less? Are we changing the menu options? And that is making it so that folks are, you know, more inclined to eat the food that we're serving them?
And so we're not currently measuring the amount of food waste in order to make those types of comparisons. But again, we are sharing feedback with providers. We are spot checking where we can to try to encourage providers to hold their subcontractors accountable to providing, you know, healthy, nutritious, quality food that meets the needs of shelter providers. I would be a little bit cautious about the food waste piece, right? There are always going to be, we would rather make sure that nobody is hungry and have a little bit of excess food on a day-to-day basis than to have insufficient food to meet people's needs. That being said, we shouldn't be wasteful either. We should be monitoring that very carefully.
I mean, but it's an important question, because if you don't like the food, right? If you're eating the same thing day after day, if you're not getting enough of it, all of that impacts the nutritional intake that you're able to get daily, right? And people may say, well, you know what, if you don't have anything else, then you're gonna have to, you know, eat whatever is there, but they're not the ones that are eating it day in and day out. And, you know, it can become, you know, pretty, not just annoying, but your body just doesn't even react to the food anymore at some point. And so that's important, because then we are contributing to folks not eating in one scenario, but we're also wasting public dollars paying contractors to provide foods that are going, you know, uneaten. And so that is problematic, you know, in and of itself, right? Because when we're trying to determine how much money we need to fund, right, these different line items, we need to know that people are actually eating it. And if they're not eating it, then what is the solution to that, right? Is it as simple as a meal change? Is it as simple as giving them a card so they can buy foods that are culturally relevant to them? I mean, we recently, you know, saw and heard from a lot of, specifically in the Hercs, with the Muslim holidays, right? There were folks that were not sure if they were going to be able to eat the foods that, you know, they're accustomed to at the times that they were accustomed to. You know, so it is important. It's important that, you know, in New York City, we don't have people that are going day in and day out without the nutritional, you know, energy that they need to be able to get through the day. And that really concerns me. So I would really like to, I would encourage HRA and, you know, and the DSS to start tracking that as a means of, you know, I don't want it to be something that is worth criticizing, but rather something that we're learning from, right? I don't want to say, hey, you wasted 10 bags of, you know, of bread. No, why did we waste 10 bags of? Is it that people here in this particular site don't like it? Okay, well, then that means that they didn't get that, right? They didn't get that meal option that day. So how can we do that better? And unless you're tracking, you're not going to get a better, you know, a good sense of where this is happening and where it isn't. So I really would encourage that. So I want to just move on because I know that we have a lot of people that are here to testify. So I have a couple more questions regarding the Community Food Connections program. So you know that it is a vital resource providing much needed food to the city's vast network of food pantries and soup kitchens. This program is especially important given the current number of asylum seekers in the city who are not eligible for public benefits programs. As of the executive plan, there is 57.1 million budgeted in fiscal year 24 for HRA's Community Food Connection program. This drops to 25.1 million in fiscal year 25 and then 20.9 million in fiscal year 26 and in the outer years. In the budgeted responses, the council called on the administration to increase the baseline funding for CFC at 60 million a year. No funding was allocated in the executive budget plan to increase the baseline funding for CFC per the council's budget response. Does HRA expect adjustments will be made in the adopted plan, and if so, how much will be added in the and in which years?
Yeah, so the CFC program is really important to DSS and to this administration, as evidenced by the additional $30 million that the Adams administration added to the CFC budgets for FY23 and FY24. We know that the need is still out there. There are unfortunately still many hungry and food insecure New Yorkers in this city, and we will continue to work with the administration to make sure that CFC is adequately funded.
How will the program continue its current operations without the additional funding added in fiscal year 25 and beyond?
I'm sorry, the first part of that?
How will the program continue its current operations without additional funding added in fiscal year 25 and beyond, especially given that both the increased need in the city and the state and the higher cost of the food?
Yeah, as I stated, we are working with the administration to make sure that the CFC program is adequately funded. Regardless of the funding level, we will continue to operate the CFC program, and we will ensure that all 699 or more, depending on as more people are added to the program, are given allocations within our CFC budgets to be able to supplement their food pantries and soup kitchens.
I mean, do you feel that they're getting sufficient money to supplement their food needs at the pantries now?
I'm sorry?
Do you feel that the food pantries are able to make do with the funding that they're getting now? Because my understanding and what I've seen visually in communities post-pandemic is that the lines are still ridiculously long. I have a pantry that's I don't know, I would say maybe half a block from my apartment building, and I've never seen the lines so long, and it's consistently stayed that way. So, you know, I have been having conversations with a lot of my food pantries, and what they're saying is, like, we're having to also ration to be able to ensure that people get something. But there are times when we're struggling to make ends meet, and on top of that, we're struggling to allow new groups and new, participants into the programs because we just don't have enough, which is why we've been fighting, for the additional increase this year as well.
Yeah, the need is definitely there. CFC is not the only funder for food pantries. It is supplemental to the state HIPNAP funding and federal funding and private donations and food bank resources. But I completely agree, the need is there. We see that the need for food is there.
I appreciate that. Can you tell us what the actual spending for CFC in fiscal year 23 was, and what is the actual spending thus far in 24?
In FY23, we fully expended our budget at $54.3 million. For FY24, we have spent $46 million to date, and we will continue to make reallocations as we get towards the end of this fiscal year to make sure that all the funding is spent. There are larger food pantries that are skilled and capable of getting bulk food out into all communities throughout the city quickly to make sure that we are using every resource at our disposal and not letting any of it go to waste and getting the food out into the community.
Okay. Can you tell us how many providers are in the CFC network?
$699.
699, okay. All right, I'm gonna move on. City Harvest released their state child hunger report in May of 2024. The report states that 1 in 5 New York City children do not know where they're gonna get where their next meal will come from. And there has been nearly a 100% increase in visits to food pantries by children and families compared to pre-pandemic. Given the increase in need and the budget proposal to reduce the CFC budget by nearly 56% in the next fiscal year, how do you intend to ensure that no child is going hungry in New York City?
Yeah, CFC funding for sure is an important component of that, but also the SNAP program and making sure we're preserving, advocating with the Farm Bill to make sure that there is adequate SNAP funding for families. The maximum SNAP benefit right now is at the maximum, not the average, but it's $8 per person per day. That is wholly inadequate already as it is. Any cuts to the Farm Bill are going to make hunger, including childhood hunger, even worse.
Yeah. I think that it's harder also on, because I think people don't get that even when we were having the discussion around the cards that the asylum seekers would receive, right? The daily allotment was like $11, $13, right? But so they're like, that's a lot, and it's more than people on food stamps get. And I'm like, well, having been a food stamp recipient, one of the benefits of having a home was that I could buy in bulk and cook and prepare raw foods. When you're living in a shelter and you have to buy the foods already prepared, I don't know how you can possibly eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner for that amount of money. So I think when you break it down like that, it gives you a different perspective on, what exactly is happening. But even with, buying in bulk, obviously, it's still not enough to, ensure that families have the adequate, amount of food at home for the entirety of the month. So usually, for those people that are watching or for those people that are not familiar, even if you are receiving federal, receiving food stamps, you may very well run out of food, week 2, week 3. And so you have to stretch whatever little bit you get. So we're seeing more and more families going into the food pantry system to help supplement those needs. And so these networks are great when they work together, but we need to ensure that we're fully funding them, so that people don't have to, they're not forced to, supplement those needs. And I had another question here regarding what was it? Oh, did I miss it? Okay. I just wanted to ask about, I feel like I did ask and I didn't. I don't know. I didn't ask about the audit from no, I didn't. The controller's audit. So on May 15th, the New York City Controller's Office released their audit on the New York City Department of Social Services Administration of the Pandemic Food Reserve Emergency Distribution Program, PFRED program, and found that DSS had poor fiscal controls over the contract with Driscoll. As a result, the controller recommended that DSS should recoup almost $7 million in overpayments. DSS agreed to take several corrective actions to improve fiscal controls. What are the implementation plans and timelines for those corrective actions? And DSS currently has a provider, H. Schreier and Company, Incorporated, managing food inventory, warehousing, and delivery for the CFC program. What measures is the SS already taking to ensure that this provider is accurately billing for transactions without warehouse staff and food costs?
So the PFRED program that was run by Driscoll was really instrumental in the early days of the pandemic in getting fresh food out to communities. This was at a time when grocery stores weren't open. People were afraid to leave their homes. People were afraid to go into grocery stores. And the program was very successful in getting a lot of food out into the community, millions of pounds of food for hundreds of food pantries in a relatively quick period of time, and at a time when food was really important. And the quality of that food was tremendous. We had all providers talked about the quality of the food. That being said, we certainly were overcharged for the delivery of that food, and we are working with a CPA firm to do a deeper audit of the contract to make sure we're recouping the full amount. The controller's audit, some of it is based on samplings, and we have no reason to doubt the controller's findings. We just, with such a large disallowance, we want to make sure that we're accounting for every dollar correctly and appropriately as we do the recoupment. We're not currently working with Driscoll any longer. The way that contract was structured is not the same way that the Driscoll contract is structured, but we are still making sure that our contract with Schreier for the CFC program, that we're getting the rebates that we're entitled to, that and other things that were found that we're not being charged for truck space delivery that is being delivered for another program, for example, that all that cost allocation is done correctly. What happened with the PFRED program is unfortunate. Agency certainly should have caught it sooner, but it was successful in getting food out into the community, and we have the proper oversight and controls over our current contract.
So
with
was the
Schreier.
agency aware prior to the controller's audit of the overspending and the overcharging?
Who was the vendor for PFRED?
No. Was DSS aware of the overcharging?
We had been aware of some of it, and we had already recouped, as the controller's audit acknowledged, we had already disallowed some of their expenses. The controller found additional ones that we had not
Picked up.
previously found.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much. Hopefully there's somebody here that can stay behind and hear the public testimony from some other providers. I think it's always helpful and useful to get that real-time feedback from the folks that are the most impacted by these contracts and our fiscal protocols, right, that sometimes become impediments to their ability to service their clients in the way that we intend. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
I'm gonna take a 5-minute break because I'm by myself and I need to do something, and I'll be right back.
Can I have your attention, please? Can I have your attention, please? At this time, please take your seats. Please ensure that all cell phones and electronic devices are placed as silent. Once again, please take your seats. Please ensure all cell phones and electronic devices are placed on silent. We shall resume momentarily. Over there? Make the relatives over there?
I want to just recognize that we've been joined by Councilmember Osei. All right, thank you so much for allowing me a little break. I'm now going to open the hearing for public testimony. I remind members of the public that this is a governmental proceeding and that the quorum shall be observed at all times. As such, members of the public shall remain silent at all times. The witness table is reserved for people who wish to testify. No video recording or photographing is allowed from the witness table. Further, members of the public may not present audio or video recordings as testimony, but may submit transcripts of such recordings to the Sergeant of Arms for inclusion in the hearing record. If you wish to speak at today's hearing, please fill out an appearance card with the Sergeant of Arms and wait to be recognized. When recognized, you have 2 minutes to speak on today's hearing topic, hunger and food insecurity in New York City, or any of the 7 bills that we are hearing today. If you have a written statement or additional written testimony that you wish to submit for the record, please provide a copy of that to the Sergeant of Arms. You may also email testimony to testimony@council.nyc.gov or any other email address that you wish. So you can send it to mine, you can send it to any other council member here. Within 72 hours of this hearing, audio and video recordings will not be accepted. We're going to call up the first panel now. Lacey Tauber, and I'm sorry if Lacey, I'm so sorry. Okay, is it? Okay, so it's just her. Lacey is here from Brooklyn Borough President Antonio Reynoso's office.
Okay, should I begin?
You can begin.
Yes. Hi, I'm Lacey Tauber. I'm the Legislative Director for Brooklyn Borough President Antonio Reynoso. Thank you so much for holding this hearing today. Again, I'm speaking on behalf of the Borough President of Brooklyn, where 30% of adults reported facing food insecurity last year. I'm going to kind of summarize. There are some maps also in this testimony that you can look at along with me. Because last year, our office published the Comprehensive Plan for Brooklyn, which examines the intersection between land use, allocation of resources, policy, and public health. And analyzing data across multiple metrics, the plan identified patterns in which low-income neighborhoods of color are less likely to have access to affordable housing, reliable transportation, educational opportunities, active recreation, and of course, healthy food. So the maps from the comprehensive plan show these patterns clearly as they are related to food access. The first one shows food insecurity in the borough. You can see Coney Island, Gravesend, Brownsville have the highest percentage of food insecure households in the borough, and that this also correlates to the highest use of SNAP, in that there's a real pattern of food insecurity in central and eastern Brooklyn. Map 2 addresses healthy food. So when we were talking to stakeholders and residents about their food and healthy living habits, they really said that the food insecurity metric didn't respond to observed conditions in their neighborhood or really reflect their experience. So what we also looked at was DOHMH's metric of unhealthy food access, which is the ratio of bodegas to supermarkets in each community district. And so by this measure, you can see that central and southwestern Brooklyn stand out with as many as 19 bodegas to a single supermarket. So these trends, as I mentioned, align with the parts of the borough that receive SNAP. In map 3, you can see SNAP access, and but I think something that's really important is that even when New Yorkers do get SNAP, according to a recent report by the Natural Resources Defense Council, people still struggle to access fresh and healthy food, and they may not understand how to use incentive programs. And there's also in map 4, you see a lack of correlation between where the farmers markets are, where they can use these benefits, and where people are receiving SNAP. So I will just stop there and say there's a number of recommendations in the comp plan that are in the written testimony that I encourage you to take a look at, and that Borough President Reynoso is very interested in working with the council on addressing this.
Were you here when, I believe that we mentioned in my testimony, my line of questioning, there was a question about certain sectors in Brooklyn that were where the application rate had significantly dropped. Or, I mean, significant, I guess is maybe it's a larger word, but we had maybe like a 7% decrease in applications, 5%. Was that something that you guys covered as well?
I think that this data might predate that a little bit, but I think that, I think it really speaks to the need for the city to be partnering with these CBOs that are doing the work on the ground, which you talked a lot about just now, because, I think there were 2 reasons that we thought people might not really be using the benefits. One, again, they just don't have the information for how to use them. And then what we're also kind of hearing is that there's still some fear on the ground related to public charge rule and everything that happened under Trump. Even though that was lifted, I think a lot of immigrants are still worried about using the benefits, so there needs to be education that it's okay, that it's not going to affect green card applications.
I agree, and any partnership would, be welcome. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, our next panel will be Joseph Rosenberg, Jessica Chait, Lakeisha Morris, Jennifer Smith, and Darrell Wright.
Wait,
we're missing one, no?
Good morning, Deputy
Okay,
Speaker.
yeah,
Council Members Stevens and Osei. I'm Joseph Rosenberg, Director of the Catholic Community Relations Council. Thank you for focusing this hearing on such an important and timely topic. Food insecurity and hunger among New York City residents is in a crisis situation, and nonprofit human service providers require emergency funding to distribute desperately needed food to the working families, elderly, and children of our city. Catholic charities of both the Archdiocese of New York and the Diocese of Brooklyn and Queens have been providing shelter, food, and clothing to New Yorkers for more than 1 century, not just during disasters such as Superstorm Sandy and the COVID-19 pandemic, but every day of every year. Both charities combined operate 77 food pantries throughout the 5 boroughs, and we serve more than 7.4 million meals annually. All providers have faced many challenges feeding hungry and needy New Yorkers over the years. Right now, this challenge is at a crisis point. We are not only feeding more working families, seniors, and children at our pantries. Recent clients include college students, youth aging out of foster care, as well as asylum seekers. The plight of hungry children is particularly heartbreaking, with more than 1 in 4 children in our city living in poverty. That is why, with more New Yorkers going hungry, we urge that you support our request to include $20 million in emergency funding for food pantries in the FY25 city budget. We are not alone in pressing for this relief. We are working closely with Met Council on Jewish Poverty and the Hispanic Federation. We also request that the 60% funding cut to the Community Food Connection Program be reinstated and be restored at a level of $55 million. While the skyrocketing increase in food insecurity caused by the pandemic has partially subsided, demand remains extremely elevated from pre-pandemic levels. We're seeing an increase of over 20% clients in the last 2 years, and in many pantries, much more. We all understand that $10 because of inflation, covers far less food than it used to. And we've also had a tremendous cut in the federal and loss in the federal pandemic programs that help fund us. We're also, because of the deficit issues, are not being able to provide as much fresh food as we used to and relying on canned food, which is not as healthy and nourishing for the families that need it. All of us must ensure that New Yorkers, especially working families, the young and the elderly, do not go hungry. We therefore call for your support in including this essential $20 million emergency fund for the food pantries of our city. Thank you.
Chair Ayala and fellow members of the General Welfare and Aging Committees, thank you for the opportunity to testify at this crucial oversight hearing on food insecurity in New York City. My name is Daryl Wright, and I am the Food Policy Fellow at the Metropolitan Council on Jewish Poverty, one of the largest emergency food providers in the city. For over 50 years, Met Council has been one of America's largest Jewish charities dedicated to fighting poverty. We provide services across the 5 boroughs through a range of services, including 100% affordable housing, award-winning family violence programming, comprehensive Holocaust survivor assistance, senior programming, crisis intervention, and the country's largest kosher and increasingly halal emergency food network. In total, we provide a wide array of support to over 320,000 clients a year. Met Council fully supports all the items on today's agenda. Despite all our work, food insecurity still rages across our city, and we must do all we can to alleviate it, and these resolutions and the bill identify areas where we can do better. In addition, we must reiterate our grave concern over the mayor's proposed cuts to the city's Community Food Connections Program, or CFC. CFC is one of the most important hunger-fighting tools we have, and we implore the council to ensure that the program is funded at least to 2024 levels. Finally, we urge the New York City Council to reprise the Food Pantry Initiative to support grassroots organizations and those excluded from traditional emergency food system by providing $20 million in order to relieve severe and overlooked food insecurity remaining from the pandemic in our most under-resourced communities. Met Council plays a unique role in the emergency food system by offering exclusively kosher and halal emergency food. While our goal is to ensure communities with specific cultural needs have the food they deserve, any New Yorker in need may access our food regardless of race, ethnicity, or religion. Like a food bank, we secure food either by purchasing or through government sources, and then distribute it to Jewish, Muslim, and other communities facing significant barriers to food access, in addition to linguistic and cultural barriers which have kept these communities from fully participating in the established emergency food system. These communities have historically been shortchanged, as so little of the distributed products will be suitable for their religious dietary restrictions, despite the fact that the need in these communities is acute and documented. A recent study conducted found over 80% of Muslim Americans observe a halal diet, and that food insufficiency within these communities was more than double the rate of other respondents. New York is also home to the largest Jewish population in the country. Another recent study conducted by UJA Federation of New York showed that there are nearly 243,000 people in kosher observant households that are food insecure, 1/3 of which are children. More broadly, we know that New Yorkers still desperately need an extra hand and another push to get back on their feet post-pandemic. The New York Times recently reported that, 1, the poverty rate is still higher, 23%, than it was in 2021, 18%. 2, life expectancy in the city has not yet recovered. 3, most working families in New York cannot afford to pay for their basic needs. And 4, evictions are rising as rents are increasing. These studies reflect what Met Council and our partners and our colleagues have witnessed firsthand, as many of us continue to serve the New Yorkers, more New Yorkers than at any point in the history of our organizations. In fact, Met Council served more people in 2022 than in 2020 or in 2021. And more New Yorkers are arriving on our doorstep seeking food each day. These individuals cannot afford to pay for their most basic needs, and they need our help. While the pandemic may be over for many, the lasting economic effects remain part of the daily lives of our community members. At the start of the pandemic, we quickly recognized that without additional assistance, many smaller, more thinly resourced pantries might fail. Indeed, the pantry system itself seemed to be teetering under the weight of the need. The City Council stepped in and provided funding to the largest emergency food distributors in the city to supply these pantries with the food and capacity resources they desperately needed. Met Council, along with partners including Catholic Charities and the Hispanic Federation, used the funding to distribute tens of millions of pounds of food in 18 months to New Yorkers in every zip code in the city. We also distributed millions of dollars in grants to keep frontline agencies operational and conducted distribution via mobile pantries and pop-ups in neighborhoods that lacked pantries. Met Council on its own provided food and grants to halal pantries who were otherwise not connected to the emergency food system in New York City. The city's targeted funding works to keep the emergency food system afloat. Unfortunately, as we now know, poverty and food insecurity have not abated since the pandemic, and these pantries once again need help. Met Council urges the Council to come to the rescue again by rejecting the cuts to CFC and by bringing back this initiative by providing $20 million so that the pantries can continue to provide food resources that New Yorkers so desperately need. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Ayala and members of the Committee on General Welfare. I want to thank you for this opportunity to sit in front of you and testify on behalf of Catholic Charities Community Services regarding food insecurity. My name is Lakeisha Morris, and I'm the Division Director of Operations for the Community Outreach Division. As you know, Catholic Charities' mission is very simple: treat our neighbors like we want to be treated. And one of the ways that we're able to do that is through our food pantries. In New York City, between the Bronx and Manhattan, we have about 27 pantries, some of which are in your district, Chair Ayala, St. Cecilia's for one. And what we do at these pantries is not just give out food, but we provide people with food information, education, access to other resources, quality of foods. We try our best to do what we can. But, with the recent cuts that we've experienced, it's been more and more challenging every day to meet the needs of our New Yorkers.
Sorry, give me a second. It's okay. Sorry. It happens to all of us. Don't worry.
Okay.
I've been there.
It's been more and more challenging to meet the needs of our New Yorkers, and one of the things that Catholic Charities strives on is, client choice and making sure our neighbors, our families have an option in what they eat. We want to be more culturally sensitive and dietary appropriate for what we give out. And with the reductions that we've received and the proposed reductions to come, it's really going to limit our ability to be able to provide these resources to our families. If I can't say anything else, I would say this: without food, we can't sustain households. People can't make informed decisions. So on behalf of Catholic Charities, we support every bill that has been put before us today, and we hope that we continue to support our New Yorkers in need. Food is not a luxury, it's a necessity, and it should be treated as such. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Ayala and members of the committee. Thank you for having me here today. I am Jennifer Smith, Food Resource Manager for Catholic Charities, Brooklyn and Queens. I have overseen the operation of our 21 network pantries throughout Brooklyn and Queens since 2015. I'm happy to be here today because the subject of hunger and food insecurity in New York City could not be more important at this time. Since the pandemic, many of our pantries have seen an increase in attendance of more than 1,000%. Small parish pantries that fed 25 to 30 people a week started seeing 400 to 500 people. People were out of work, senior needed help, food prices are rising. Our network went from feeding 10,000 people a month to over 54,000 people a month. It was overwhelming, but we changed how we distributed food, received help from many organizations, and with the strength of our amazing volunteer base, made it through the worst of the pandemic. Things started to level off in 2021, and while we never get back to pre-pandemic numbers, things became more manageable. People went back to work. Catholic Charities was able to help people get SNAP benefits. Seniors were still coming, but working families started to come less often. We started to average about 20 to 25,000 people a month. but the price of food is rising and funding is becoming more difficult. Since the beginning of 2023, we've been seeing a steady increase of people attending our pantries once again. As of today, we feed an average of 36,000 people a month. We are seeing many clients come back, especially working families needing help feeding their children. Seniors need Catholic Charities' help to stretch their fixed incomes, as well as many new clients who have heard from friends and family that we can help. Our pantries, especially in Sheepshead Bay, Coney Island, and Canarsie, are seeing an influx of Russian and Ukrainian people, many of whom have displaced family members living with them. We've seen an increase in the amount of young people seeking our help. College and high school students are now coming to pantries, either for themselves or to help their families. This surge of clients and the high cost of food has forced us to change food distribution again. We're not able to provide fresh produce like we were and rely mostly on dry goods and canned foods. I work at a pantry every Wednesday at Our Lady of Angels, 330 73rd Street in Bay Ridge. This pantry is one that has grown by over 1,000%. As I register new people, I make it a point to say, my name is Jennifer, and please, if you ever have an emergency, you come to me. We'll get you some food. Please support the $20 million food pantry emergency funding for the FY25 city budget. Thank you.
I'm going to be limiting my questions because we have a significant number of panels, but I wanted to just say thank you for not only being here today to testify, but for your guidance, because we have, really been listening and, utilizing those experiences and bringing those to the budget negotiating table, because we agree that we need to do more, and you have to be, insane not to realize that the need has gotten greater in New York City. All you have to do is look and see. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Our next panel consists of Richard Ralph, Barbara Hughes, Ariel Savronsky, and Greg Silverman. You may begin, any one of you. You want to come this way? Yeah, go ahead. You can begin. Go ahead. Yeah.
I think I just turned it off. Okay. Thank you, Chairperson Ayala, and members of the Committee on General Welfare, for holding this hearing and for the opportunity to submit testimony. My name is Ariel Sabransky, and I am a Senior Advocacy and Policy Advisor at UJA Federation of New York. We know that food access continues to be a concern among New Yorkers, and we continue to see high rates of inflation and food insecurity, especially in households with children, and New York food pantries and soup kitchens are reporting that they are unable to meet increased demand. We thank the Council for introducing the resolutions that were discussed today, which uplift opportunities for the state and the country to implement programs and policies that will support the most vulnerable individuals and families. UJA supports the New York City Council in this area and offers the following contributions. I know there were a number of questions, and thank you, Chairperson, for posing a lot of the questions that we also had questions about. We were happy to hear commitment from the Commissioner that the CFC program will be adequately funded. We still have concerns, but we know that they are aware of how important this program is, and we will continue to push for the $60 million in funding. We were also happy to hear that the NYC benefits program will be maintained. That's something that we know is very helpful, especially given the influx of asylees and migrants into the city, a program that we support, and again, we'll continue to push for the contracts to be awarded on time and for providers to be made aware that they're actually going to be awarded those contracts. I'll just say a few words on the Farm Bill. We are very supportive of a full Farm Bill and increased funding for emergency food programs. We're also very focused on the halal and kosher food being included in the emergency food assistance programs. We know that there's a huge need. UJA Federation supports Met Council to operate the largest kosher food bank and pantry network in the country, and there are a number of recommendations we have that would make the program work better for these kinds of pantries. And then lastly, I'll just say, I know we've spoken about the SNAP for All bill, and we're very supportive. Thank you for introducing that resolution. We're working with the state to make sure that we can get a task force formed that can look into the impact of this program. So looking forward to continuing to work together. Thank you so much, and I'll happily answer any questions.
Go ahead. Thank you, General Welfare Chairman Diana Ayala. We really appreciate all your support, and I want to call out, thank you for not letting go on the line of questioning on the SNAP backlog. We're all baffled by what's happening, and our frontline staffers keep saying the same things. And Jill Berry said, if someone's hungry, she said, call 311 to find a pantry. The pantry is going to be closed with these CFC cuts, many of them, and so it's the disconnect is real. My name is Greg Silverman. I come from the West Side Campaign Against Hunger. We serve about 80,000 community members, some in your district, with a lot of healthy, fresh food, a lot of that through CFC funds. And that's really important. In addition to the work at the West Side Campaign Against Hunger, we helped found the Roundtable, Allies for Food Access, a network of 8 of the largest emergency food providers in the city. You're going to hear from a number of them in this process. Many of us brought plates we would love for you to bring to the mayor or Jill Berry, saying things like that our community members said, like, we're hungry, don't cut CFC, you're starving our pantries. Restore CFC funding so our community gets the food they need. During the past summer, WISCA alone, my organization, saw a 42% increase in the demand on top of the pandemic. This is unheard of. I was proud in the winter of 2021-22 to be named co-chair of the food transition for Mayor Adams and looking at the food policy initiatives. And we really focused in on CFC as this core piece of the work. And to see these kind of cuts is an outrage. You're hearing it from everyone, but we want to be as helpful as we can to you and other city council members in pushing this agenda forward of making sure the community is fed. So obviously, again, like everyone else is saying, we need to make sure there's no cuts to CFC, bring it back to 57, if not 60 million, and make sure that the city is truly a city of yes to our community and yes to CFC. Thank you.
Hello again. My name is Barbara Hughes, and I'm the Executive Director of City Bee Kitchens at Project Renewal. It's a New York City Homeless Services nonprofit agency, and thank you, Chair, and the City Council for convening the hearing. For over 55 years, Project Renewal has provided shelter, housing, healthcare, and employment services to New Yorkers experiencing homelessness. We're grateful to the City Council for supporting our programs. We're proud to have partnered with the city to address some of New York City's biggest challenges, including food insecurity and hunger. The budget must address the root causes of these challenges. And to make meaningful progress, we must improve stability for individuals and entire communities in the first place, in part by expanding access to supportive workforce development opportunities, especially for those who face significant barriers to employment. We need these employment opportunities for New Yorkers so that they can move towards supporting themselves. Our workforce development programs are a vital resource for thousands. For example, our culinary arts training program provides New Yorkers facing barriers to employment, including veterans, with a world-class culinary education and a pathway to fulfilling a career. Graduates who go on to work in settings like corporate kitchens, local restaurants, and for City Bee Kitchens prepare food for other New Yorkers, which prepares food for other New Yorkers in need. Our career advancement program provides retention and advancement services tailored to helping our clients build careers. Programs like this ensure career growth and maximize earning potential so participants can attain financial independence. To continue critical programs like these, we rely on $400,000 in citywide initiative and speaker funding. Investing in workforce development programs generates a strong return on investment for all of New York City by creating conditions for entire families to survive. We know the council is a true partner to the nonprofit sector, so in the final budget, we urge the council to increase investment in workforce development programs. Thank you very much.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair Ayala and the City Council for convening. My name is Richard Ruff. I'm the Training Quality Control Manager for the nonprofit Project Renewal, social enterprise catering company, City B Kitchen. As Barbara said, Project Renewal has been providing shelter, housing, health care, and employment services for 100,000 New Yorkers for over 55 years. This is a meaningful program working towards addressing these challenges. Supportive employment personally made a big difference in my own life. I worked hard to get where I am today. My journey wasn't an easy one. I'm proud to say that I served our country in the Marine Corps from 2001 to 2005 and in the Army National Guard from 2006 to 2013, with one deployment in Afghanistan in 2012. When I finished my term of service, I had a hard time readjusting to civilian life, and unfortunately, I was incarcerated for 5 years. Upon release, I was eager to renew my life, and that's when I found Project Renewal in 2018. I enrolled in the Project Renewal Culinary Arts Training Program, and CATP trains New Yorkers who face barriers such as myself and many others in finding employment after hardship that we experience due to life poor choices. We need these types of employment opportunities.
Not always a life of poor choices. Sometimes it's a life of poor circumstances.
Yes, I totally agree.
Don't assume all of the responsibility.
Yes. We need these type of opportunities, and definitely getting the support and funding for these programs definitely helps in that manner. Upon completing the program, the Project Renewal team was impressed with my hard work and dedication, and I was hired as a junior cook. Since then, I've been promoted twice, and now I'm the Training Quality Control Manager. I oversee service we allocate to contracts with other homeless shelters to provide food for the residents, assess food quality, address discrepancies, and get feedback so we can try to improve the quality of what we do. Project Renewal has helped brighten the dark part of my life after incarceration. Has helped me to get back into work and helped me to give back to the community, which I'm very proud of. Every person, every veteran should have these kinds of opportunities, especially when they fall in hard times. And I hope that New York City Council will continue to provide funding for Project Renewal and other programs like these to help generate a strong return on investment for New York City by creating conditions for entire families to thrive. Thank you.
I'm gonna have to come and taste the food first. And then we'll determine. But I really appreciate this program so much. I appreciate, all of the panelists, but I really appreciate this program the most because it has, such a benefit, right, for sustainability, for persons' independence, for future generational change. I grew up on public assistance. My mother was a single mother who was also born and raised into poverty. And so it's cyclical. And then when I got there, when I was old enough, I had 2 children, and I remember being in the park, and I couldn't afford to buy the kids an ice cream cone because I had already spent my money on, Con Edison and the cable bill, and the kids needed this and that or whatever. And it was really through through school. And I tell people it's either, the only way to really get out of this, out of poverty is through an education or through employment. And, these programs reap so many benefits for future generations. So I'm so proud of you. I'm so happy that you're happy there, and I will come and taste the food, and maybe you can teach me how to make your favorite dish. It's something that I really enjoy, and I'm trying to get my son into as well because he really enjoys the art of cooking. So thank you, and best of wishes. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
The next panel consists of Jeanette Estima, Stephen Grimaldi, Nick Buis, Camila Gomez, and again, my apologies if I mispronounced your name. I feel like you shouldn't even be here, Steve. Like, I feel like I know too much about you. You may begin, you may begin.
Hello, my name is Jeanette Estima, and I'm the Director of Policy and Advocacy at City Meals on Wheels. Thank you, Chair Ayala, for the opportunity to testify. In addition to funding home-delivered meals for weekends, holidays, and in emergencies, City Meals also provides directly food to people during citywide emergencies and localized emergencies when they cannot access other emergency food programs. I wanted to share some findings from recent research that we completed that demonstrates the urgent need for expanding nutrition programs to better address food insecurity for older New Yorkers. We partnered with the CUNY Urban Food Policy Institute on a study of older adults using home-delivered meals and congregate meal programs to understand their practices and unmet needs. The level of food insecurity among those who are already accessing the city's 2 programs that target elder hunger is staggering. 48% reported some level of food insecurity, and that goes up to 60% when we're looking just at home-delivered meals recipients. 56% received SNAP benefits, but about a third of them said that the amount that they received was not enough to meet their needs. In addition, only 18% had used a food pantry, and about 4% had used a mobile food pantry. So given that this was also a very low income sample that we surveyed, with about 65% of those surveyed earning about $15,000 a year or less in income, and this high level of food insecurity all really suggest a serious disconnect between the services that are offered to them and the need that they're experiencing. Older adults must no longer be an afterthought. Their needs must be included in our anti-hunger solutions. We need to look at all the food programs across city, state, and federal levels to ensure that they're accessible to older adults and that they're presenting a comprehensive approach to hunger. This includes expanded SNAP funding, the ability to use SNAP dollars for hot and prepared meals, extending benefits to all immigrants and undocumented older adults, and funding more mobile food pantries. Finally, we're also asking that the council help to advocate for expanded funding and additional meals that are provided through the Older Americans Act for congregate and home-delivered meals programs. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I have about 500 exhibits here from participants of our programs, just to give you an example of the commitment and the impact that cuts to CFC will have. We actually gave the people, all of our participants, the option of just putting a sticker in their native language. They chose not to, most of them. They actually wrote a personal message on them, so I encourage you to read them. They're very powerful. Thank you, Deputy Speaker Ayala and members of the council for allowing us to testify. I'm Stephen Grimaldi, the Executive Director of the New York Common Pantry, also a representative of the Roundtable Allies for Food Access. As you know, the Roundtable is it's a dedicated and collaborating network of 8 emergency food providers throughout New York City. Put simply, it should be a right to have access to healthy food. An investment in providing food means allocating resources, financial, human, and material toward programs aimed at ensuring people have access to nutritious and sufficient food. By confronting food insecurity today, we help solve its attendant problems of tomorrow. Poor health outcomes, poor functioning in school, mental health issues, just to name a few. Unfortunately, the current proposed budget does not create a positive blueprint for the future with extreme cuts to CFC funding. For the past 2 years, we saw what a difference a well-funded CFC program made. CFC provided fresh produce and increased allocations for food purchases to help us serve the increased volumes of people needing food assistance. Last year alone at NYCP, we saw the number of guests we serve rise 32%. This year, it's rising another 29% with our fiscal year ending June 30th. We'll likely distribute more than 11 million meals. According to the True Cost of Living report, 3 million of our neighbors are considered income inadequate, 50% of working-age households do not have enough earnings to meet the minimum cost of living, and more than half of New Yorkers earn less than $46,000 annually. We urge the City Council and the Mayor to not only restore CFC funding to its original levels, but to increase funding to $60 million for CFC and $20 million in emergency food pantry funding. Let's invest in a brighter future. Let's increase CFC and pantry funding, not cut it. Let's say yes to food access.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Nick Buse.
I feel like I know too much about you two.
Okay. I'm done.
No, go ahead.
I'm Nick Buse from the Food Bank for New York City. I'm the Director of Government Relations. Thank you, Chair, so much to you, to your staff, to all the council members for really pressing HRA-DSS on the importance of food security. You've heard a lot about need from so many community providers. You'll continue to hear about it. So I just want to clarify and kind of add some flavor to a couple things. One, when it comes to the community food connection, you've heard the First Deputy Commissioner talk about adequate funding. The reality is, when you look at city, state, and federal funding, it is inadequate for emergency food. The supply gap and the meal gap, so these are the metrics that indicate what the difference between household resources are versus how much it costs to actually buy food at the grocery store. And then when you look at the supply gap, which fills in that gap, there's still a gap. And that's with, if we look at current funding, where CFC is higher than it has been, where SNAP had been higher than it had been. But the reality is citywide food distribution is declining. That means community-based organizations are trying to do more with less, and that's unacceptable. You know this, but I just want to reiterate this idea that the adequacy that we're talking about is really just a basic survival and persistence. We're not talking about filling that meal gap or filling that supply gap fully. The second thing I want to clarify is the concept around the way the city helps people access SNAP. New York State does a good job. I don't want to underestimate that. But it is the case that while around 90% of the people who are under 125% of the federal poverty limit do access SNAP, many people in New York City who are above that federal poverty limit up to 200% still qualify for SNAP benefits. And when you look at that metric, it's really 1 in 4 New Yorkers in New York City, by HRA's estimate specifically, who are eligible potentially for SNAP but are not participating in SNAP. That's 1 in 4 New Yorkers. So there's a lot of room, a lot of opportunity for growth, and we think the way to do that is to lean into community-based providers who are providing access, who are helping people navigate in highly personalized, language-specific, trusted spaces. I'll stop there.
Hi, thank you, Chair Ayala, for holding this very important hearing. My name is Camila Gomez, and I'm here on behalf of God's Love We Deliver. We're New York City's leading provider of medically tailored home-delivered meals and nutritional counseling for people living with severe and chronic illness and who are too sick to shop or cook for themselves and their families. Annually, we prepare and cook more than 4 million meals in our kitchen with fresh ingredients and deliver in refrigerated vans directly to the home of more than 15,000 clients across New York City. The medically tailored meal model is an intervention designed to support people living with severe and chronic illnesses. Our meal plans are tailored to the medical and dietary needs of each of our clients by one of our 11 registered dietitian nutritionists. Our clients receive unlimited nutritional counseling sessions from our team of RDNs in an effort to provide ongoing support to clients. Research demonstrates that MTMs improve health outcomes, lower cost of care, and increase patient quality of life. In fact, when patients receive MTMs, healthcare systems see a 16% net cost savings after paying for the intervention. Patients are admitted to the hospital 50% less often, and they reduce their reliance on emergency department services by 70%. We believe that being sick and hungry is a crisis that demands an urgent response, and for New Yorkers living with complex illnesses, God's Love is the only service that stands between them, hunger, and malnutrition. Each love, God's Love, continues to grow to meet the demand for services. It's one of our core principles that we never have a waiting list. However, this is becoming increasingly difficult without additional support, as we're now on track to deliver 4.3 million meals this fiscal year, having grown more than 50% in just the last 2 years alone. Now in our 39th year of service, we have been a longstanding life-saving resource for New Yorkers in need who are living with severe and chronic illness and who are facing malnutrition.
Food insecurity impacts an individual's ability to follow medication plans, control their chronic conditions, as well as receiving timely medical care. Furthermore, malnourishment actually increases a person's likelihood to be readmitted to the hospital after a first hospitalization by 50%. In light of the great need demonstrated by New Yorkers living with severe and chronic illness, along with the improved health outcomes shown by research, we ask that the City Council develop a contract specifically in service of those in need of life-saving medically tailored meals. However, while appreciating that this may not happen in the last month of the fiscal year, we urge the Council to support our request for FY25 discretionary funding through the Speaker's office. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I've had the pleasure of doing both God's Love We Deliver and the Meals on Wheels program for many years, and I love them. The benefit. I mean, I think it to me is like I love it more than they do probably, because when I go into those homes and speak to the people, the recipients, right? These are real people that are maybe struggling or maybe are undergoing some illness that prevents them from being able to prepare their own meals and don't have that informal support. So thank you for doing that work, and Steve is like teaching me how to really understand the ins and outs of what it means to run the food pantry business. Is very difficult, but it's also very humbling experience. He had me do I'm just gonna rat him out, but he had me do Thanksgiving dinner a couple of times, and it was hard taking those the menu options and then making sure that people got the right food back. It was hard, but it was very fulfilling for me and to the people that were there. So thank you so much. And Nick has taught me everything about the wait lists that exists even in the local pantry around the corner from my home, which thanks to your program gets funded. And just seeing all of the work that you guys put in and the love that you put into the work that you do is really uplifting and helps ensure that we have that fight, right, to continue to advocate beyond the walls of today's hearing and have that translated into our budget negotiation conversations. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Our next panel consists of Christina Hansen, Rachel Sabella, Joel Berg, and Martina Santos. You may begin.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Speaker Ayala and the Committee on General Welfare for having this hearing today. My name is Christina Hansen, and I'm the Executive Director of Part of the Solution, or POTS, a community-based organization in the Bronx that has been fighting food insecurity and poverty for over 4 decades. Last year's True Cost of Living report shed light on a stark reality. Over half of New York's households cannot cover the necessities. It is an insurmountable challenge. That rate exceeds 80% in the Bronx communities that we serve. The demand for our services has not abated, in fact increased since the COVID-19 pandemic. For many of our clients in the most critical situations, including those facing homelessness, they come to us in desperate for access to food. Clients will prioritize paying rent so they're not evicted. They will sacrifice their access to food and rely on organizations like POTS to make it through the month. In addition, for clients who've overcome many challenges by securing a steady job or finding a stable housing arrangement, the wages they are paid are just not enough to cover the cost of essentials in this city. Last year, we partnered with members of our community to create a space where they could share their thoughts about neighborhood issues. On the subject of food insecurity, I bring a statement from this committee, and it reads, POTS Community Advisory Committee stresses that the 5 boroughs are facing hunger. The added costs of rent and taxes, among others, make it impossible to cover the cost of food that is needed. Salaries have not increased at the same pace as prices. The committee is concerned about the quality of food that is available. Children are hungry at home, and school meals are not always ideal. A hungry child cannot focus on learning. Seniors are not always accessing the most nourishing food that will give them the nutritional values they need at their age. Hunger is real in the city, and people are forced to make the most of limited resources, including expired food, to survive. End of quote. Potts believes that hunger in New York City is unacceptable. This is one of the richest cities in the world. With the political will and resources available, we can have both short and long-term solutions to food insecurity. We're concerned about the trends we see in proposing cuts to public programs assisting the hungry, like Community Food Connections and the School Meals Program, which are a matter of survival for many vulnerable families. And we ask city officials to consider expanding the budget for these programs to the levels that others have mentioned in this program. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Good afternoon. My name is Rachel Sabella, and I serve as the director of No Kid Hungry New York. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Thank you, Hunger Hero, Diana Ayala, and the entire City Council. We have worked together for a long time to connect more New Yorkers with meals, and we need your support and leadership more than ever before. 1 in 4 children in New York City could face hunger this year. A recent poll that No Kid Hungry put out in the field found that 85% of New Yorkers saying their incomes are not rising as fast as grocery prices. We all feel that, and we need to do more. What passed last week out of the House Agriculture Committee was cruel. To take away that much funding from SNAP recipients, we need to come together to ensure there is a bipartisan bill that protects New Yorkers, that expands benefits. The other place where we can work together is to continue to hold this administration accountable. We heard today from the Department of Social Services, but they talked about a very limited portfolio of programs. And we know that every city agency is either providing food or meal programs or has a way to promote it to families. So we want to make sure, as we're approaching summer, the hungriest time of year, the city is working to promote summer meals to anyone who is eligible through different agencies. This year, for the first time, New Yorkers are going to be eligible for summer EBT. We thank the Council for advocating for New York to opt into it. While it's being administered by the state, we need the city, DSS, DOE, any agency that touches eligible families to promote it. And the best way to make sure people are getting those benefits is to do SNAP enrollment. So are those events happening in schools and after school programs? How are they working across city agencies to feed families? I would be remiss, though, if I did not mention a big issue that we've been all working on: cuts and confusion over the Department of Education's budget for school meals. We want to make sure that kids have consistent access to nutritious meals, and this administration continues to fulfill their promises of supporting families. So thank you, and together we can make No Kid Hungry a reality.
Hi, I'm Joel Berg, CEO of Hunger Free America. Let me reiterate the thanks of all my colleagues, for the Deputy Speaker for your incredible leadership on these issues. I've submitted detailed testimony for the record, so let me just highlight a few points. Number one, this is an affordability problem, not a food distribution problem. We need to raise wages and make New York City affordable again, and then fill it in with food. Two, just like Rachel said, that the top thing we need to do is increase participation in the existing federal programs. Every dollar we at Hunger Free America spend on SNAP outreach funded by the city generates $60 worth of groceries funded by our very wealthy Uncle Sam. We need to do more to help people get WIC, which is available for new migrants. School breakfast, we still have the lowest school breakfast participation rate out of any big city in the United States. I know the General Welfare Committee doesn't oversee the Department of Education. I hope the council can really focus on this. Every mayor claims they're going to fix it, and it's still not fixed. We're losing out to LA, Chicago, Houston, Newark, not Mayberry. Big city school districts are doing better than us. Of course, it's absurd that for the third mayor in a row, they're proposing slashing emergency food to pantries and kitchens and the food bank and agencies. Every year, the council puts back the money, and every year we have this ridiculous dance where we have to come here and beg, so to speak, for the needs of the most vulnerable New Yorkers. It is insane. And lastly, let me reiterate how crazy and immoral the Farm Bill passed by the House Republicans are. We support all the legislation here to increase, to push Congress to do better. But just to help you understand, the same bill that cuts $30 billion out of the most vulnerable American children, older Americans, workers, veterans, and people with disabilities. That adds $50 billion in agribusiness corporate welfare to the biggest agriculture corporations in America. It's immoral, and the council should do everything it can to oppose it. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Diana Ayala. Good afternoon, everyone in this room. My name is Martina Santos, and I'm volunteer in board member in Westside Campaign Against Hunger. My testimony today is because the situation is really critical for our community here in the United States. Currently, I'm attending Westside Campaign Against Hunger food pantries, a customer, and then I'll be volunteer and the board member. I have been visiting Wisca for 14 years. When I come to Wisca, right away I fall in love with Wisca, and I'll be a customer. My income is too low. I'm living in the Bronx, and I can't affordable to buy a healthy food to put it on my table. That's why I'm going to Wisca. The distribution on Wisca is one of the best distribution because we got fresh fruits and vegetables, protein, grain, milk. I wish when I went to Wisca, I'd be able to choose my own food I want to be taking home. Everything is worse after the pandemic. And the pandemic, with the people, they lose their job. The people lose the job. They need to move with a family member. Wisca, the mission of Wisca is fighting with the hunger here in New York City. We have opportunity to help in Wisca to give it don't cut the budget, please. I'm not really nervous because that's the first time I talk in public. I hope you forgive me. For the example, 7 years ago, Wisca has only one distribution, it was the pantry. Now we have 30 points with distribution for a 1,500 family member in New York City. So that means Wisca is grow. Wisca distribution and the pantry and the 30-point distribution, 4 million pounds of healthy food to 80,000 families. Also, they plan to cut the budget. I see if you, the council member, they could do something. Do not cut the budget. Everybody is in the room. We're working at the same page. Do not cut the budget for family to go into food pantry. Food pantry means for people, for the community, is going to healthy food, to get the healthy food. Also, they saving some money. Before, you remind me when you said something about Connecticut. I spoke to a couple of ladies in the pantry in Wisca, and those ladies, they said they go into pantry day by day, and the money they saving at the end of the month, they go and part of the money they go into Connecticut, and other part they going to pay the cable, the internet bill, because they have grandkids living in the house, and they need to go and to do the homework at home, because if they go into the library, the line is too big. So the situation is really, really, really bad. And no New Yorker deserving to go in with the empty stomach to go into a bed. So that's why I say thank you to you and thank you to all the members. They helping to that, do not getting cut on the budget. Please, I begging you and begging everybody is in the room to keep pushing, because not you, not her, not him. Everybody gonna be on the same page to be para lograr que no se haga ese corte. Sometimes I get like a struggle.
To ensure that the cuts don't go through.
Yeah. Yes, yes, please, thank you. But that's what I'm here, to give my testimony, because the thing is really, Wilka before they taking only 300, 400 customers, and one day Wilka they take 600 customers. Yeah. It's because when you see people in the line in the pantry, it's because they need it. Because if you don't need, just lie down on your couch watching TV or do something else. Yeah. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Are you sure you haven't done this before? I don't know.
Thank you.
Thank you so much to this panel.
Have a wonderful afternoon.
Igualmente. Gracias por venir. Okay. We have 2 panels and 2, Rich? Evelyn Garcia, Alex Hughes, Sophie Martin, and Paula Inhargue? Sorry about that, Paula. Who's Paula?
Me.
How do you pronounce your last name? Inare. Oh, okay.
It's fine.
You may begin, whichever side wants to go first.
Chair Ayala and members of the Committee on General Welfare. Hello, my name is Evelyn Garcia, and I am the executive chef of the Teaching Kitchen at Lenox Hill Neighborhood House. Thank you so much for holding this important meeting. The Lenox Hill Neighborhood House is a 130-year-old settlement house that provides an extensive array of social services that improve the lives of over 15,000 New Yorkers in need each year, from ages 3 to 103. Today, I will be speaking on behalf of our community from my unique perspective as a chef leading a farm-to-institution training program that impacts almost every council district. Lenox Hill Neighborhood House is in support of resolutions being heard today and will submit a more thorough testimony on what we believe are positive impacts of federal legislation supported by resolutions 25, 227, and 237. The Neighborhood House serves over 400,000 meals annually to our clients in-house, including 3- and 4-year-old children in our Head Start early childhood program, to unhoused women residing in a mental health shelter, and to members of our older adult centers. Our social workers and benefit advocates help clients obtain SNAP benefits, provide resources for food pantries and soup kitchens, assess and authorize home-delivered meals, share free nutrition education program, and often navigate conversations with clients on how to maximize governmental benefits and eligibility in order to stretch budgets and improve access to food and food security. The resounding refrain and common barrier is lack of access to healthy, affordable food and not having enough funds or resources to afford food, even if accessible and available to purchase. Generally, legislation to increase flexibility and where and what type of healthy food can be accessed through assistance programs is welcomed and more closely matches the realities of how working people purchase and prepare their meals. Expanding eligibility for food assistance to promote participation in higher education and workforce training is also warranted. Most importantly, increasing food for food aid that adjust for the rising consumer cost is essential. There are steps that the city can take on this front as well. To address food cost and inflation, the city should partner with organizations to provide government-funded meals through nonprofits and schools. At the Teaching Kitchen, we offer all nonprofits free training on our farm-to-institution model to improve citywide meal programs. Incorporating this training into workforce development for cooks and chefs, along with basic equipment upgrades such as sharp knives and cutting boards, would ensure healthier, nutritious meals across the city. Promoting local procurement and enhancing the food system across New York State to supply locally grown food at reduced cost is essential. Additionally, investing in the salaries and professional development of cooks and chefs, especially in nonprofit institutional kitchens, will improve food security and support the retention and financial growth of paid workers, primarily mujeres de color, women of color. In closing, food and having access to healthy, affordable, and fresh food and meals is something we consider a right. The federal legislation you will support through these resolutions and innovation in the city practices closer to addressing food insecurity. Thank you.
Hi, good morning. Thank you, Councilmember Ayala, for holding this important hearing on an issue that is really critical to not just our city, but our state and nation as a whole, and also for the rest of the city council members that are here to hear this. My name's Alex Hughes. I'm the Senior Director of Hunger Prevention and Advocacy with Project Hospitality. We're an interfaith service provider in Staten Island, and we service over 30,000 individual Staten Islanders a year. According to United Way's 2023 True Cost of Living report, 41% of Staten Islanders in Community District 1 do not make enough money to make ends meet. Community District 2, also 41%. And in Community District 3, which is considered to be a more affluent area of the island, still almost 1/3 of Staten Islanders do not have enough resources to make ends meet. Oftentimes that means not enough to feed their families. I'll tell you a little bit about our pantry. We're still seeing 200 to 400 individual households come to us twice a week. We have some messages from some of those households. These plates are literally just from 3 hours of a distribution. And the messages can range from things that are very policy oriented to just messages simple as, please, we need the food pantry. This is how we feed our family of 8, please. If these cuts go through, I'm not worried about just our program, but also all of the other programs that benefit. I think 699, it was said earlier. That is how many programs that are receiving funding from CFC. This issue is personal to me as well. I was one of those kids that went to school hungry. I was one of those kids that couldn't focus in class because I was hungry. I was in a state where there was not a robust emergency food system that exists here. That's one of the reasons I moved here, because New York City has often been a leader on so many important issues, and our city has the chance and the opportunity to continue being leaders in this space and not followers, especially with what we all fear is upcoming with the Farm Bill. So thank you all for your support and recognition of how important those policies are at the federal level. So in closing, I'll just say that, thank you again for the support. And there are so many families who just don't qualify for SNAP because they make this much too money. That was my father. And that shouldn't happen. That should not happen. So CFC should absolutely be fully funded in our view. And a fully funded CFC means stronger and healthier communities. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Sophie Martin. I'm a registered dietitian at Housing Solutions of New York. HSNY is committed to ending homelessness through essential support services and creating holistic paths. To successfully address homelessness, we must focus on helping New Yorkers who face poverty and may become at risk of homelessness. We're intentional in services like the Food and Nutrition Program that address root causes, provide stability, and prevent homelessness before it occurs. Food insecurity is associated with negative outcomes like poor health and low education achievement that perpetuate the poverty cycle. Almost 15% of New Yorkers experience food insecurity. Healthy food access and nutrition promotes health, community stability, and fights against homelessness and recidivism. Since 2019, we've empowered this through various services like our Ryan White Food and Nutrition Program, emergency pantry services where we provide a variety of culturally diverse meal kits for family shelters, and community-based pantry. We're pleased that the Council is supportive of crucial bills like the Farm Bill, Enhanced Access to SNAP Act, and the Hot Foods Act. However, there's definitely more work to be done. We call on Council members to encourage their federal colleagues to prioritize nutritious foods in each legislation. A USDA study estimates that over 20% of SNAP dollars are spent on poor nutrition items, like soda, desserts, which contribute to unfair and debilitating disease. As the largest food benefit, SNAP presents an opportunity to improve health by prioritizing nutritious foods as allowable purchases. This will ensure that SNAP dollars can go further in helping vulnerable families achieve security and health. We recommend partnering with meal providers to deliver low-cost, nutritious meals for those in need. Finally, we'd like to emphasize that we can effectively reduce food insecurity by aligning policies and programs to evidence-based models and recommendations. Giving away food is not enough. By offering evidence-based programming that combines client choice pantry models to reduce food waste and promote autonomy, nutrition education, motivational interviewing, and targeted referral services, we can better help people obtain stability in food, health, housing, and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Ayala and members of the committee for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Paula Inargue, and I'm a policy analyst at United Neighborhood Houses. UNH represents neighborhood settlement houses, and our members provide a wide variety of services to their community, such as providing support to access benefits and case management for HRA programs. We are at a crucial moment to address issues of hunger, food insecurity, and poverty in New York City. The city must fund the Community Food Connection Program at $60 million in FY25 to sustain and grow the program, allowing providers to effectively allocate resources and keep supporting the growing needs of asylum seekers. Several settlement houses in UNH's network receive this funding, and it directly supports communities in need of food. Thank you for your support for this funding level. The Council should also restore its food pantry initiative to at least FY23 levels, recognizing its important role in addressing food insecurity and supporting communities in need. Fully funding both of these programs is critical, especially because they both support people regardless of their immigration status. Our written remarks highlight a concern around New York City aging programs that address food insecurity for older adults, including recently awarded contracts for the Home Delivered Meals program. We are concerned that some of these contracts went to private contractors for the first time, and that this may compromise the integrity of this essential social service program. Lastly, thank you for your questioning earlier around the New York City Benefits Program and clarifying the funding levels. We need to ensure this program is fully funded in the out years so all 36 CBO providers are able to continue their essential work. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much. This is the final in-person panel, so I just want to remind anyone, if you are here and you wanted to testify, please see the Sergeant at Arms and fill out a form. Nazine Rahman, Graham Horn, Ruth Moore, and Sharon Brown. Come on up. You can begin. Yeah.
Deputy Speaker Ayala, council members and staff, good afternoon, and thank you for this opportunity to offer testimony. My name is Graham Horn, and I'm a staff attorney at the Shelter Advocacy Initiative, Public Assistance and SNAP Practice at New York Legal Assistance Group, or NYLAG. Thank you, Chair and other members, for highlighting the issue of food provision in DHS and questions to DSS Deputy Commissioner. I would like to offer some further reflections on the state of food insecurity in the city's increasingly multifaceted shelter system. NYLAG clients frequently report that the meals they are served in shelter are too small to abate their hunger. They say that they are not allowed to have more than one serving of items per meal, and that the serving sizes themselves are very small. As a result, clients residing in shelter are left perpetually hungry. Inadequately feeding shelter residents only further disenfranchises them. Providing food is not the same as providing enough food. Shelter residents with a job are often faced with the impossible choice of work or eat. This is a result of the fact that shelter meals are served at specific and rigid times, and if the residents are not present at those times, they cannot get a meal. This difficulty is multiplied by the fact that recipients of cash public assistance are not awarded the restaurant allowance supplement if they live in a shelter that serves meals. On top of that, individuals and families who reside in shelters that purport to provide meals have their cash assistance benefits reduced based on the fiction of readily available food. Further, shelter policies prevent residents from bringing in outside food, weakening the possible benefit of food pantries and market shares. This compounding problem of hunger in shelter deserves the Council's attention and immediate action. Our most recent immigrant neighbors and clients also face extreme hunger in their new immigrant-only shelter system. Those clients residing in these shelters report that they are not being provided with adequate food, not being served hot food, and that the food they are served has mold on it or is otherwise spoiled. Compounding the difficulty here for our new immigrant neighbors, most are not eligible for federal SNAP benefits. NILAG is honored to stand in support of Resolution 57, which calls for the state of New York to provide food support benefits for those not eligible to receive federal SNAP assistance. Such a local program would provide our new immigrant neighbors with essential food assistance. We thank you for the work you have done to facilitate services for vulnerable New Yorkers, and we hope we can continue to be a resource for you moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, and if you can get your hands on a menu.
Say it again.
If you can get your hands on a menu that you can send me, I plan to go and see, because that's a really good point. The timing issue also, like, it's really, I didn't ask about that, I didn't think about that one, but you're right. If you're working and you're, you know,
right.
You can't stay, yeah,
right.
yeah. No, thank you so much for bringing that up. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Nazneen Rahman, and I'm an Assistant Vice President at Emblem Health Neighborhood Care, overseeing our 15 neighborhood care sites across New York City. On behalf of Emblem Health, I would like to thank Chair Ayala and the members of the Committee on General Welfare for holding this hearing. Neighborhood Care is a nonprofit operating in all 5 boroughs where we provide free in-person and virtual support, access to community resources, and health and wellness classes to all community members. We provide services in English, Spanish, Mandarin, Cantonese, and Haitian Creole, and 81% of our team members are bi or trilingual. At Neighborhood Care, we are dedicated to addressing unmet health and well-being needs, and some of our priorities include increasing access to healthy food and nutritional guidance. In 2023, nearly 72,000 individuals accessed care through our sites, and we reached nearly 7,500 recipients at food pantry and farmers market events, in collaboration with our partners at our Harlem, Crown Heights, East New York, and Jackson Heights locations. We also won support for 3 grant programs that increased food access and programming at our sites in Flushing, Chinatown, and Cambria Heights, thanks to Councilmember Ung, Manhattan Borough President Levine, and State Senator Comrie. In addition to these events, we host nutrition classes, we run diabetes self-management courses, and we facilitate SNAP enrollment. We support the City's Council's efforts to address hunger and food insecurity in our city, and we hope to be a constructive partner and resource to accomplish these goals. We would welcome support and partnership from City Council members to enhance our ability to host food distribution and nutritional education at our sites. We would be happy to share our findings and experiences working directly with the community, and we would like to be considered as a partner in initiatives you have underway to improve access to healthy food. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. Thanks for having me. Thank you, Chair, for allowing me to speak at this hearing. SNAP benefits are extremely important to satisfy the basic needs to myself and people that are in my community. I live in the borough of Brooklyn, and the SNAP program help assist families throughout my neighborhood. Without the benefits of the SNAP program, myself and others would not know where our next meal would have come from. Thank you for having me and hearing me out.
Hello, how are you? My name is Sharon Brown. Okay, when this is this is for general welfare. This is not for welfare benefits, for general welfare. But we're speaking about food, also welfare.
That's right.
Okay, so if people aren't given monies that live in shelters for hot meals, they must stick around the shelters doing nothing. They won't be able to prosper themselves. So they need to get cash benefits for food. They need food stamps for cold food so they can get things. They also need to be able to bring food inside and keep it. The general welfare is they should have the food for money for hot meals and food stamps. This affects the homeless military, homeless veterans, even police officers. Some who were charged with crimes go into these shelters. They don't tell people that they are police officers or former police officers, but they report to these places too. So it needs to be carefully handled. We have military in there. We have police officers, former police officers who will have their overturned convictions and then be back on the force. So we need to treat them and handle them with care. General welfare, we need places for people to be. We have the homeless population. Some of them are not really homeless. They are in between places because of landlord's abuse. We need to handle the general welfare of landlord abuse, period, across the board. It's not being taken care of properly. And it affects mostly military, veteran, police officers, and things like that. We need to have seating for everyone, tourists, military, police officers, etc.
Thank you so much, Sharon. Thank you. Thank you to this panel. Okay, we're moving briefly to Zoom before we hear from our last panelist, but I'd like to remind everyone that I will call up individuals in panels. Once your name is called, a member of our staff will unmute you and you may begin your testimony once the Sergeant at Arms sets the clock and gives you the cue. All testimony will be limited to 2 minutes. Remember that there is a few second delays when you're unmuted before we can hear you. First, we'll hear from Kathleen DePerna, followed by Egundu Anuha.
Okay. Good afternoon, Deputy Speaker Ayala and members of the General Welfare Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today on Rethink Food's efforts to reduce food insecurity and support frontline community-based organizations and our city's small minority and women-led businesses. My name is Kathleen DePerna, and I represent Rethink Food, a New York City-based nonprofit with the mission to create a more sustainable and equitable food system, one where every New Yorker has access to dignified, culturally competent, and nutritious food. Currently, we operate in 35 council districts across all 5 boroughs. Rethink was founded in 2017 by our CEO and founder, Matt Joswiak, who saw firsthand how good food from restaurants goes underutilized and to waste. He started our sustainable commissary kitchen by transforming excess food from restaurants, corporate kitchens, and grocery stores into meals delivered to CBOs, a model that concurrently tackles food waste and food insecurity. Today, that kitchen prepares an average of 15,000 meals per week and distributes to 10 CBOs in Queens, Brooklyn, and Manhattan. Our work has evolved to include another innovative solution to address food insecurity, our Rethink Certified Restaurant program. Launched at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, with food insecurity escalating and restaurants facing widespread closures, Rethink leveraged its experience to partner with restaurants to prepare meals for food insecure communities. We had a unique opportunity to distribute meals to keep restaurants open, retain staff and jobs in our community. Since the pandemic, we've engaged both of these models to respond to providing over 13 million culturally competent meals for our newest asylum-seeking neighbors at 34 shelters in the city. We were brought in to help improve the quality and cultural competency and reduce food waste at these sites, and would like to continue to work with the city and council to provide better prepared meals to New Yorkers in need. Ultimately, the clients that we continue to serve seek food assistance at organizations like Rethink because of an inefficient food system, and we continue to urge the city councils, agencies that procure food, and the administration to continue focusing on improving the quality of food procured so that we can get New Yorkers the food they need, decrease the amount of food wasted, and be less reliant on food access organizations so they can use these funds for other pressing city issues. And Chairperson Ayala, I just want to echo the comments that you made earlier. And we'd love to continue working with you, Majority Leader Farias, Council Members Juan, Menon, Hudson, and Hanif, and the Mayor's Office of Food Policy on improving food quality and New York City food procurement. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now hear from Egundu Anuha.
Thank you, Chair Ayala and the Committee on General Welfare for holding this important hearing on food insecurity. My name is Egundu Onoha, and I'm here today as a board member of the Metropolitan New York City WIC Association. I will submit a written testimony in case my time runs out. but the Special Supplemental Nutrition Program for Women, Infants, and Children, WIC, offers nutrition education and counseling, healthy foods, breastfeeding counseling and support, voter registration, referrals to community agencies for women, infants, and children up to the age of 5. WIC is one of the only federally funded programs available to all residents, regardless of citizenship or immigration status. Our goal is to help women, infants, and children live stronger and healthier lives. Our member organizations from the 5 boroughs, Long Island and the Hudson Valley, serve hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers. And the impact WIC makes plays a significant role in reducing healthcare costs, as well as reducing high mortality rates, especially among women of color. According to the New York State Department of Health, only half of eligible New York families participate in WIC. Additionally, less than half of eligible children from ages 1 to 4 participate. Our association knows very well that more outreach is needed to engage more eligible New Yorkers. Despite this growing need for WIC, funding for WIC providers in New York State has remained stagnant for a decade, leaving our program severely understaffed and unable to upgrade facilities or purchase basic technology and office equipment. This has resulted in WIC agencies straining under caseloads that have become more challenging as asylum-seeking families seek our assistance. The state has given us flat funding of just about $26 million a year for the entire statewide WIC program for the past 9 years.
Your time's expired.
Which has resulted in many WIC providers shutting their doors, including Jacobi Hospital, North Central Bronx, Kings County Hospital, Governor Medical Center, East Harlem Human Services, and Richmond University Medical Center. These offices have endangered 12,000 women from getting services from WIC. While we are remaining in productive conversation with the governor's office for avenues for additional funding, we must make you aware that WIC providers need the city's ongoing support and advocacy on increasing state funding and forging new partnerships that will allow us to continue our work in your districts. I hope you will please consider us as a resource as you seek ways to address food insecurity in New York City. And we look so much forward to collaborating with you on ensuring the long-term availability and stability of the WIC program in New York. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now hear from our final panelist, Susana Camarena. Make sure that the light is on, the red light. There you go. Yes, is it on, the red light? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, and good afternoon, Madam Chair Ayala and members of the committee. My name is Susana Camarena, and I'm the Executive Director of the Tacombi Foundation, an established 501c3 and Tacombi's philanthropic arm. As you might know, Tacombi is a New York City-based company operating 21 Mexican taquerias in the United States and a tortilleria factory in Sunset Park, Brooklyn, 12 of which are based across Manhattan, Brooklyn, and Queens. The mission of the Tacombi Foundation is to advance Mexican and Hispanic immigrant communities through food accessibility, education, and employment training, which is why I'm here today. In April of 2020, the Foundation launched the Tacombi Community Kitchen Program, or TCK for short, as a response to the food insecurity crisis exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic. Since then, the Tacombi Foundation has turned TCK into a food accessibility program with partners such as Rethink Food and Hispanic Federation, among others, and has provided over 1 million meals since then. The TCK program has continued to grow by leveraging the kitchens of the 21 Tacombi restaurants to produce over 8,000 meals every week and distribute them through a network that consists of over 30 community-based organizations across Manhattan, Brooklyn, Queens, and especially the Bronx, and which are embedded in neighborhoods with large concentrations of Latino and Hispanic communities, many of whom are recent arrivals. According to the latest data from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, 1 in 5 Latinos in the United States experience food insecurity and are 2 times more likely to be food insecure than their white neighbors. According to 2022 data from the New York State Comptroller's Office, the food insecurity rate for Hispanic New Yorkers is 22%. In our extensive work through the Community Kitchen program, we have seen a bigger demand for food, one which is much larger than today. It was the highest of the COVID-19 pandemic when the program launched. For this reason, we are here today to highlight the issues affecting the Hispanic immigrant communities going through food insecurity, and we call upon the City Council to consider all measures that will improve the living conditions and provide needed through food to all New Yorkers, to continue our work of dignifying people through food, of providing reliable, wholesome, and culturally relevant meals to families facing food insecurity. The Tacombi Foundation has requested discretionary funding under the Food Access and Benefits and Welcome NYC initiatives for fiscal year 2025, for which we hope to be considered and work alongside the City Council on this pressing issue. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And with that, I want to just add that if we've inadvertently missed anyone who would like to testify virtually, please use the raise hand function in the Zoom, and I will call on you in the order of hands raised. Okay. Seeing no one else, I would like to note that written testimony, which will be reviewed in full by committee staff, may be submitted to the record up to 72 hours after the close of this hearing by emailing it to testimony@council.nyc.gov. I want to thank all of the folks that came out today to testify, and with that, this hearing is closed.